Emperor Nanxian was also furious. If that little girl was really captured or killed by this Jishen, how could the East Phoenix Kingdom let it go? Their South Dragon Kingdom would be doomed. Jishen looked at the two of them with disdain. His Majesty Fenghua has indeed sacrificed herself to the Divine Dragon. To say the least, even if my national advisor killed her, what can you do to me? Do you still dare to go against the Lihen Palace? Emperor Nanxian and Prime Minister Sima were so angry that they gritted their teeth. However, when they thought of the Lihen Palace behind Jishen, they could not help but be cautious and did not know what to do. When Jishen saw this, his attitude became even more arrogant. I'm just informing you. Your Majesty Nanxian, tomorrow is a good day. Send the 7th princess to me. Emperor Nanxian was so angry that his old face turned red. He was filled with hatred. However, he did not dare to do anything. He almost wanted to bang his head against the wall. At this moment he heard the guards behind him exclaim, "Divine Dragon! The Divine Dragon has appeared!" Pandian Zerovoanum Emperor Nanxian and the other two raised their heads to look at the altar. They saw a majestic golden dragon appear above the altar. However, what surprised them even more was that the person standing beside the golden dragon was actually Yun Chujio. Prime Minister Sima rubbed his eyes and saw that His Majesty was standing next to the golden dragon calmly. He even waved his claws at him. Prime Minister Sima suddenly felt that this was like a dream. What was going on? Could it be that not only was His Majesty liked by the Divine Phoenix, but the Divine Dragon also liked her? Jishen was even more shocked than them. He had been the national advisor for so many years, but he had never seen the phantom of the Divine Dragon. Previously, the orders of the Divine Dragon were just voices. Everyone came back to their senses and quickly knelt on the ground. The Golden Dragon glanced at the crowd with disdain and his eyes fell on Jishen, who was at the front. Are you the National Master Jishen? Jishen nodded repeatedly. He had given many young girls to the Golden Dragon who were half dead. Could it be that the Golden Dragon wanted to reward him? Before the Golden Dragon could say anything, he heard Yun Chujio say weakly, Master Divine Dragon. This is a historic moment. Please wait a moment. I will go down and record the process for you with the Shadow Stone. The Golden Dragon did not object. It was good to keep it as a memento. After all, it was going to have a body soon. Yun Chujio jumped down from the altar and summoned the Shadow Stone that she had bought at a high price. She adjusted her position and nodded at the Golden Dragon. Only then did the Golden Dragon say, Jishen, you go up to the altar. I have something important to announce. Jishen was delighted. Could it be that the Dragon God wanted to appoint him as the Dragon God's messenger? If that was the case, that would be great. Jishen hurriedly stood up and walked up to the first level of the altar. The Golden Dragon frowned. Come to the 9th level. Jishen thought for a moment. It was indeed better to go to the 9th level for such a solemn matter. So he climbed up to the 9th level of the altar. Seeing that Jishen was within its control, the Golden Dragon sneered and said, Jishen, what crime should you commit? You actually used the name of this divine dragon to make the Southern Dragon Kingdom offer countless innocent girls. And those girls were eventually trampled to death by you. A heartless person like you simply deserves death. Today, this divine dragon will execute justice on behalf of the heavens and kill you, this shameless scum. As soon as the Golden Dragon finished speaking, its huge claws directly smashed Jishen into meat paste. Yun Chujio stretched her neck and shouted, Lord Dragon God is wise. Lord Dragon God is mighty. Emperor Nanxian and the others reacted and also shouted. Seeing this scene, the Golden Dragon was very proud. After it successfully possessed in time, it would definitely be stronger than it was now. When that time came, everyone would have to bow down to it. Yun Chujio secretly put away the Shadow Stone. Then she hugged her shoulders and calmly looked at the Golden Dragon on the altar. After enjoying the cheers of the crowd, the Golden Dragon finally realized that the little girl with the Thunder Spirit Root had never climbed up the altar again. It looked at Yun Chujio, who was hugging her shoulders and looking at it, and said, Little girl, come over. Yun Chujio spread out her hands. Lord Dragon God, the evil has been eliminated. You can go back and rest. I won't disturb you anymore. Golden Dragon, after coming over for a long time, The golden dragon finally came back to its senses. Was it deceived? Damn it, not only was it deceived, but that stinky girl also used it to kill Jishan. She was using it to kill someone else. No, using the dragon to kill someone else. The golden dragon was so angry. If it was a real body, it would probably be so angry that it would vomit blood. But what could it do? Could it be that it was blatantly saying that it wanted to possess someone else? It suppressed its anger and pretended to be kind as it said, "Little girl, this divine dragon likes you very much and wants to make you the divine dragon's emissary. Come up to the altar and this divine dragon will immediately announce this news." Emperor Nanxian and Prime Minister Sima did not understand. They looked at Yun Chujo excitedly, especially Prime Minister Sima. He looked at their emperor with a urging gaze, wishing that their emperor would grow wings and fly to the altar immediately. Unexpectedly, their emperor Fenghua smiled faintly and said, "I'm sorry, I'm already the divine phoenix emissary. I don't want to be the dragon god's emissary anymore. Lord Dragon God, please go back." Moreover, although Jishin is dead, some people still know some things. You have such a wise and mighty image, so you should still cherish it. The golden dragon was so angry that it trembled. This wretched girl was really too hateful. She was threatening it. But what could it do? It had absorbed countless young girls' souls before it could solidify its remnant soul a little. It simply could not maintain its illusory image for too long. Emperor Nanxian was dumbfounded. Why was he listening to the conversation between the dragon god and the little girl? There seemed to be some hidden meaning in their conversation. Just as Emperor Nanxian was pondering, the golden dragon said to him, "Let that little girl ascend the altar. Otherwise, this dragon god will not protect your southern dragon kingdom." Emperor Nanxian was dumbfounded. If the divine beast didn't protect their southern dragon kingdom, wouldn't that force him, the emperor, to step down? What should he do now? Yun Chujia's eyes deepened. She pointed at the golden dragon and scolded, "Don't be so shameless. Do you really want me to tell you about your trivial matter? How great do you think you are? The Southern Dragon Kingdom doesn't have many of you, and it doesn't have many of you. So what if you don't protect it? We still have Jing Muan, the Divine Phoenix, the White Tiger, and the Black Tortoise. We still need you. If you don't want your reputation to spread far and wide, you'd better get lost now. Otherwise, it'll destroy your reputation. Besides, you've been out for a long time. The heavenly lightning might come soon. After all, you'll be struck by lightning if you do something bad." Boom! Following Yun Chujia's words, a bolt of heavenly lightning struck the golden dragon's shadow. The golden dragon was struck so hard that it trembled. It didn't have the time to argue with Yun Chujio anymore. It disappeared from the altar dejectedly. Pandian 0v1's Emperor Nanxian and the others were scared silly. Damn! Wasn't this female emperor of Fenghua a little too intrepid? She even dared to scold the divine dragon? Most importantly, the dragon god actually disappeared without a trace? What kind of monster was this? Yun Chujio touched her chin and looked at the cloudless sky with a dumbfounded face. Did her jinx skill work again? What was the reason for this? She came back to her senses and saw that the people on the ground were still kneeling. No one got up and looked at her in horror. This guy rolled his eyes and said seriously, "The divine dragon did something bad and was discovered by me, the messenger of the divine phoenix. You also know that the divine beasts control each other. So the divine dragon admitted defeat. I don't want to spread the news about me and the divine dragon. You know what to do, right?" Everyone hurriedly nodded. Not only did they not dare to tell others, even if they used their courage to tell others, others would not believe them, okay? How could a human dare to point at a divine beast and curse? This was simply sensational. Yun Chujio told Emperor Nanxian not to clean up the scene because the people from the Lihan Palace would arrive very soon. She wanted them to see that Jishin had died on the altar so that they could get away with it. After returning to the imperial palace of the Southern Dragon Kingdom, Emperor Nanxian naturally thanked Yun Chujio profusely, and his attitude became even more respectful. What a joke! This person even dared to curse the divine dragon. If he was not honest, he would be courting death. Regarding Jishan's matter, I have the Shadow Stone here. Your Majesty Nanxian can make a few copies. I believe that the Lihan Palace will send someone very soon. You can just hand the shadow stone over to him. There's no need to explain too much. Yun Chuzhou said indifferently. Emperor Nanxian nodded repeatedly. With the shadow stone, even if the Lihan Palace was dissatisfied, they would not openly make things difficult for them. Emperor Nanxian was silent for a moment, then asked, Your Majesty Fenghua, I'm still worried about one thing. If the new imperial preceptor sent by the Lihan Palace is the same as Jishan, what should we do? Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. Don't worry. The hateful palace is not that stupid. The people sent this time will definitely be good on the surface. Moreover, after this matter, the two imperial preceptor from the West Wu Kingdom and the North Xian Kingdom will also be much more obedient. Just as Emperor Nanxian was about to flatter her, the light in the room dimmed. Yun Chujia's heart sank. Fuck, could it be that the heavenly lightning had struck her again? Yun Chuzhou rushed into the courtyard and saw dark clouds rolling in the sky. Wu Yun's aura was astonishing. Not only was the sky getting darker, but the powerful pressure was suffocating. Emperor Nanxian followed her out and looked at the sky. Your Majesty Fenghua, is the heavenly lightning here to strike the divine dragon? Isn't the divine dragon already hidden? Why would it attract the heavenly lightning? Yun Chuzhou glanced at him and said faintly, The heavenly lightning is probably here to strike me. A few days ago I was showing off my love with the Empress, so these single lightning bolts are a little envious and jealous, so they came to strike me. Emperor Nanxian recalled the lightning strike he had experienced before and couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. He asked worriedly, Then what should we do now? Don't worry, I won't implicate you. I will leave the city right now and draw the heavenly lightning over. Give me all the flying spiritual artifacts you have. Emperor Nanxian hurriedly transferred all the flying spiritual artifacts in his storage ring to Yun Chuzhou. Only then did Yun Chuzhou ride the giant rabbit out of the imperial palace. Prime Minister Sima, who was waiting outside the imperial palace, saw the dark clouds in the sky and had a premonition that something bad was about to happen. When he saw Empress Zhou, who had been running all the way out, he immediately staggered. It was over. The heavenly lightning was indeed coming for His Majesty. No one else had the ability to cause trouble like His Majesty. Occasionally missing content. Please report errors in time. Yun Chuzhou waved her hand at Prime Minister Sima. There's no need to follow me. I have my own plans. Prime Minister Sima thought to himself, if I don't follow you, I'll be courting death. Yun Chuzhou rode on the giant rabbit and galloped all the way out of the capital city of the Southern Dragon Kingdom. Yun Chuzhou summoned her flying spirit tool and landed in a valley. She took out Xiao Hanyo and Xiao Mogu, and the three perverts sat in a row, waiting to be struck by lightning. This guy had just unlocked the method of resisting the lightning of the flying spirit tool, so he wasn't worried at all. At worst, he would just waste money. It didn't matter, I have plenty of money. When this guy thought of the spirit stones, he immediately thought of that annoying Dehua. Damn it, there was no money. She was probably going to be penniless soon. If she could save it later, she would use it sparingly. After all, this flying spirit tool was quite expensive. Boom! 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 Wu Yun was too lazy to test it out. The first thing he did was to hack it to death. He simply hated the three perverts on the ground to death. It was also a familiar formula and a familiar smell. When the little black bird and Xiao Mogu had almost fully absorbed it, Hei Xinzhou kept the two and began to absorb it herself. When she was almost at the limit of her absorption, this guy released Dehua. Before she could anger Dehua was struck by lightning. Yun Chuzhou. Hei Xinzhou tried a few times but failed. She was too lazy to use Dehua. She directly summoned a flying spiritual device and started to walk the dog. No walking thunder. Wu Yun in the sky was so angry. Chasing closely behind Yun Chuzhou, Hei Xinzhou kept changing her flying spiritual device. She didn't know how far she had flown, but she was miserable. She didn't know what kind of boundary she had entered by mistake, but it was actually forbidden to fly there. The flying spiritual device that was burnt black by the lightning fell down like a kite with a broken string. Hei Xinzhou was dumbfounded. Fuck, was she not struck by lightning? Was she going to fall to her death? Fortunately, this thing had everything in its storage ring. She threw a lot of big gunny sacks filled with sand onto the ground, saving her life. Wu Yun in the sky saw that Yun Chujio could no longer use her flying spirit tool, and immediately trembled arrogantly. Stupid girl, you're dead meat this time. Yun Chujio didn't have a flying spirit tool, so she could only rely on her 2 legs to walk the lightning. She couldn't run anymore, so she let out the Meng Yanshou. The Meng Yanshou risked its life to hold on for almost an hour. Seeing that it had reached its limit, Yun Chujio had no choice but to put it away and carry it on her own. As time passed, Hei Shinjo felt that the meridians in her body were about to explode. She thought to herself, was it going to die just like that? It was too fucking depressing. She thought about it and summoned De Hua. This time she learned from the previous lesson and protected De Hua with her own body. Then she started to get angry. De Hua, it's not that I don't like you. You are even weaker than the most useless little bastard. What's the use of a spiritual beast like you? PN0V1 calm the little bastard that was innocent in the spiritual beast ba. If it were not for the urgent situation, it would have complained about it. It was not that it was useless. It was still a cub. Moreover, its big bastard shell had made many contributions. De Hua, you are a walking waste. You are a disgrace to the fierce beast world. If I were you, I would find a piece of tofu and kill myself. Yun Chujio scolded for a long time, but De Hua acted as if it did not hear her. There was still no sign of darkening. Yun Chujio could only continue to curse. De Hua, it's not that my words are harsh, but with your current state, you will definitely be alone in the future. Which young lady would fall for a good-for-nothing who is not good-looking and useless? The purple color on De Hua's body instantly turned black, and her figure began to rapidly grow. Yun Chujio was dumbfounded. She seemed to have unsealed the new skill that made De Hua go berserk. Wu Yun looked at the blackened De Hua with a dumbfounded expression. What the hell is this? Wasn't it a purple pig? How did it turn black and grow a pair of wings? A pig can fly into the sky? Who cares what the hell it is? Let's just chop it up first. Several bolts of lightning struck towards De Hua. Wu Yun was stunned to discover that the damned pig actually opened its mouth and ate the lightning. Ate. Wu Yun was so shocked that she even forgot to strike the lightning. What the fuck? What was going on? Yun Chujio was meditating with her eyes closed. When she realized that the lightning had stopped striking, she could not help but open her eyes and look curiously. When she saw that everything was normal, she did not have time to think too much and continued meditating. After a full 15 minutes, Wu Yun finally regained her senses. What the fuck? She had seen a ghost in broad daylight. It must have been a coincidence. Boom! 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 Wu Yun struck several lightning bolts at De Hua again, and they were all eaten by De Hua. Moreover, it seemed that De Hua still wanted more. Wu Yun was so angry. Logically speaking, shouldn't spiritual beasts dissipate after a while? Why didn't this damn pig dissipate? Perhaps Wu Yun's resentment had taken effect, and De Hua finally dissipated. Wu Yun vented his anger and started to attack Hei Shinjo. Hei Shinjo quickly released De Hua again. This time this guy had experience. He directly poked De Hua's sore spot. You stupid and stupid foodie. Someone like you can only be a bachelor for the rest of your life. As soon as Yun Chujio finished speaking, De Hua's body turned black and his body started to grow rapidly. When Yun Chujio saw that De Hua had completely turned black, she was very proud of herself. She felt that she was awesome. When she saw that De Hua had eaten several bolts of lightning, she could not help but feel a little dumbfounded. This foodie even ate lightning? However, it was also true. Lightning was the source of lightning's spiritual power, and this was the same reason as eating spirit stones. As Yun Chujio thought about it, her eyes lit up. Since De Hua could eat lightning, wouldn't she save a lot of spiritual stones? Therefore, this fellow stretched his neck and shouted, De Hua, eat more. Anyway, there's a fool who will provide you with such delicious food for free. It's a waste not to eat it. Painting of one Wu Yun in the sky was so angry that he almost fainted. You are the fool. Your whole family is a fool. Therefore, Hei Shinjo began to repeatedly release De Hua and anger De Hua. In the end, this fellow was too lazy to say anything more. Just saying 5 words could anger De Hua, a 10,000-year-old single pig. Hei Shinjo let De Hua eat the heavenly thunder while running forward. This fellow knew very well that every time Dehua was released, it would consume a lot of her spiritual power. Therefore, she had to leave this place as soon as possible. After that, she could use her flying spiritual device to resist the heavenly thunder. However, this fellow ran in the direction she came in for quite a while, but she still did not leave this no-fly zone. What the heck? Could it be that there was an array formation or a barrier here? Her heart sank as she thought of a possibility. This place might be a barrier and she could not enter normally. The flying spirit tool that the lightning struck her previously might have unintentionally opened the barrier. So she had mistakenly entered this place. This fellow's heart was like a beeping dog. Fuck, since she could not get out, she could only walk in. Perhaps she could find a place to avoid the lightning. Thus, Heishinjo ran in the opposite direction. Yunchujo ran and discovered that more and more red plants were appearing on the ground. Some of them she had read about in ancient books, while others she had never seen before. Yunchujo looked at the plants that she couldn't recognize and felt that her previous guess was right. There must be a barrier here, isolated from the world. Otherwise, no one would pick these high-level spirit herbs. In the distance, there were still lingering clouds and mist. She could vaguely see a towering mountain peak, but the shape of the mountain peak was a little strange. It looked like a candle. Yunchujo did not have the time to gossip about the shape of the mountain peak. She was anxious to find a place where she could temporarily hide from the heavenly lightning. Even a cave would be good. While Heishinjo was thinking, she finally saw a deep cave entrance in the distance. Haha, hard work pays off. This cave looks very solid. I should be able to hide for a while. Wu Yun rolled and crawled into the cave. Although the heavenly lightning struck by Wu Yun was a little crooked, its power was greatly reduced. It did not pose much of a hindrance to Heishinjo. Wu Yun was shivering in anger. He started hacking at the mountain without caring about anything else. Fuck. He would crush this scourge to death in the cave if he had to. Unfortunately, the mountain was abnormally strong. Wu Yun had been hacking at it for a long time, but he only managed to chop off some broken stones. Wu Yun had no choice but to give up for the time being. He did not believe that the wretched girl would hide in the cave and not come out. In the cave, Heishinjo was meditating and adjusting her breath when a huge suction force suddenly came over. This fellow was bitterly sucked into the depths of the cave. Because the change happened in an instant, Heishinjo did not have time to react. By the time she reacted, she was already locked in a cage. TSK. It's actually a little girl with a heavenly thunder spirit root. It's really my good fortune. A man's shadow said with a strange laugh. Yunchujia's heart felt like it was bickering with a dog. Damn it, she had just left the wolf's den and entered the tiger's den. She was really unlucky. Yunchujo looked at the man in front of her and her heart skipped a beat. The mountain peak she saw before was like a candle, and the person in front of her was obviously a demon. Could it be the Enigma that Succubus mentioned? Back then she had tricked the succubus into revealing the hiding places of a few demons. And one of them was Enigma. He said that Enigma was hiding in the Jutian Valley. So this should be the Jutian Valley. Yunchujo blinked her eyes. You are Senior Enigma? Enigma was stunned. How did you know my name? Yunchujo squeezed out 2 crocodile tears. Senior Enigma, I finally found you. I am the disciple of Senior Succubus. I am here to find you. Enigma was dumbfounded. Succubus disciple. Yes, my master was trapped in the Sea of Flames on the Immortal Essence continent. He couldn't get out. He told me where my seniors were trapped and asked me to save all of you so that we could conspire together. Yunchujo said sincerely. This guy found out that this cage was made of 10,000-year-old black iron to isolate spiritual power. Moreover, she was afraid that the kitchen knife would be struck by lightning. Previously, she kept it in her storage ring. Now she could only rely on her mouth to bluff. As long as she got out of the cage, it would be easy. Enigma stared at Yunchujo for a few times. Conspiracy? What kind of conspiracy? Of course, it's to gather all of our forces to either conquer a continent or return to our homeland. Yunchujo said with a yearning look. When Enigma heard Yunchujia's words, he became a little more convinced. After all, the demons had their own sphere of influence. Stupid humans did not know that. Although what you said makes sense, why would Succubus take you as her disciple? Yoon Chujia's face showed some pride. Because I'm good-looking, am devastatingly good-looking. Enigma heard Yoon Chujia's reply and nodded. Succubus, that useless person, indeed likes beautiful women. However, why would a human like you be willing to help us demons? Yoon Chujio pointed at the top of her head. You heard it too, right? The heavenly lightning outside struck me. I have the heavenly lightning spirit root that the heavenly Tao does not tolerate. Even the humans ostracize me. I despise hypocritical humans the most. I think the demon race is better, so I submitted to my master and volunteered to save the seniors. Hearing Yoon Chujia's words, Enigma believed her 90%. However, his tone was a little disdainful as he said, "How can a little ant like you save us? Lord Enigma, you're looking down on me by saying this. Although my spiritual power is weak, my brain is good. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see my master in the sea of flames, right?" Lai Yan's voice was filled with disdain. "I used a trick to trick those flame seals to bring me in. Tell me how you can leave this place. I will think of a way for you," Yoon Chujio said unwillingly. Pandian 0ve1 cm. This Jutian peak is the core of the array formation. Unless the peak is flattened, I have no way to leave this cave. Therefore you have no way to let me leave this place. If that's the case, I might as well eat you to replenish my spirit energy," Enigma said with a sinister smile. "Senior Enigma, we are all one family. Is it really good to kill each other?" Yoon Chujio said weakly. "Humph. We demons are not as hypocritical as you humans. We are the most pragmatic. If you can save me, then we are naturally one family. However, you have no way to save me now, so why should I keep you?" Enigma said matter-of-factly. "Senior Enigma, who says I have no way to save you? I have a way to save you. The piece of Wu Yun outside hates me to the bone. If I climb to the peak, it will definitely chase after me and chop me down. It won't take long to flatten the peak," Yoon Chujio said confidently. Enigma felt that this method was feasible, but this little girl couldn't be thinking of taking the opportunity to escape, right? "Your words are nice, but if I let you go, what would you do if you took the opportunity to escape?" Enigma stared at Yoon Chujio and asked. Yoon Chujio spread out her hands. "Lord Enigma, you also know that I can only withstand the heavenly thunder for a while. When I can't withstand it, I would have to return to the cave to hide. Where else could I run to? Moreover, the human race can no longer tolerate me. If I don't submit to the demon race, what else can I do? How about this? If you have poison or something to make me swallow it, if I don't keep my promise, you won't give me the antidote." Clearly, Yoon Chujia's last words moved Enigma. He took out a pill and threw it to Yoon Chujio. Yoon Chujio swallowed it without hesitation. Enigma said coldly, "The pill you just swallowed can only be undone by me. If you dare to lie to me, Yoon Chujio said obediently, "Don't worry. Even if it's for my life, I won't betray you." Enigma felt that it was foolproof, so he opened the cage made of 10,000-year-old black iron and let Hei Shinjo out. The first thing Hei Shinjo did when she came out was to hold the kitchen knife in her hand. Enigma asked in puzzlement, "What are you doing with the kitchen knife? Is it to climb to the peak?" Yoon Chujio said with a smile, "Senior Enigma, come here. I'll tell you a big secret about this kitchen knife." Enigma took a few steps forward and asked curiously, "What secret?" Yoon Chujio smiled sweetly at him and raised the kitchen knife in her hand to chop at him. "The secret to let you die." Enigma was really shocked, but he did not take it to heart. What could a stinky girl with such weak spiritual power do to him? It was simply courting death. Therefore Enigma was very careless. He didn't dodge Yoon Chujio's big kitchen knife at all. Instead he stretched out his hand to grab Yoon Chujio. Ah! Enigma was hit by the big kitchen knife and let out a shrill scream. Enigma looked at the big kitchen knife in Yoon Chujio's hand in disbelief. Divine weapon? Impossible! How could this be a divine weapon? Yoon Chujio did not care whether he believed it or not. She struck a few more bolts of lightning that contained small flames at him. Enigma's attention was on Yoon Chujio's large kitchen knife, so he did not pay too much attention to Yoon Chujio's lightning until he was hit by the small flames hidden within. He let out a shrill scream again. 10,000-year-old fire marrow? How could you have 10,000-year-old fire marrow? Mo was so regretful that his intestines were turning green. If he had known this would happen, he would not have let this stinky girl out. However, wait, he still had a trump card. Stinky girl, if you kill me, you can forget about getting the antidote. I will definitely destroy the antidote before I die. Mo said viciously. Yun Chujia's smile became even sweeter. Idiot, I have always eaten poison like candy. You want to poison me with that lousy poison? Dream on. Mo was furious. It turned out that all of this was planned by this stupid girl. Humans were indeed treacherous. Although Yun Chujia's spiritual power was weak, whether it was the large kitchen knife or the small flame, they were all the nemesis of the demon race. Therefore, Mo did not dare to get close to Yun Chujio. Instead, he was forced to retreat by Yun Chujio. Mo changed his tone and said, "Little girl, we have nothing to worry about in the distant days and have no enmity with each other in the near future. Why do you have to force me? Leave this cave immediately and I will pretend that nothing happened." Yun Chujio curled her lips. Cut the fucking nonsense. I still want to occupy your cave and use it to avoid the heavenly thunder. How can I not kill you? Mo. This stupid girl was 10,000 times more shameless than the demons. Damn it. Due to the large difference in spiritual power, Yun Chujio was busy for a long time and could not attack Mo again. This guy could only release Dehua. 10,000-year-old single pig attack. Kill him. When Dehua heard the words 10,000-year-old single pig, it was as if he was injected with chicken blood and instantly turned black. Mo was dumbfounded. What the hell was this? There was such a spiritual beast? Dehua ferociously bit at Mo. Its heart was filled with anger, and all of its anger was directed at Mo. Mo naturally would not sit still and wait for death. It fought with Dehua. Yun Chujio knew that Dehua was not Mo's opponent. She magnified Dehua in order to distract Mo's attention, so that she could succeed in her sneak attack. Hei Shinjo sneaked behind Mo with a large kitchen knife and slashed at him. Mo screamed in pain and his figure became much fainter. Then he disappeared. Yun Chujio was stunned. Where did he go? Did he die from her slash? It shouldn't be. Yun Chujio searched the cave but did not find anything strange. Mo seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Pandian 0v1 CM Yun Chujio rubbed her chin and pondered. She had to find Mo, otherwise, when she went out and was half dead from the heavenly lightning, she might fall into his trap again when she came in. However, where was this damning Mo hiding? Yun Chujio's eyes lit up as she thought about it. She remembered that the succubus had once said that Mo could hide in a human's shadow. She looked at the shadow beside her. It would be best if she could make him lower his guard before she could hit him with a single strike. Yun Chujio thought of this and snorted coldly. She muttered to herself, I reckon that Mo is already dead. Forget it, let's go out and withstand the heavenly lightning for a while. Then we can come back in. Yun Chujio walked out of the cave as she spoke. Mo, who was hiding in her shadow, was delighted. As long as this wretched girl came out of the cave, she could forget about coming back in. Moreover, if she was half dead from being struck by the heavenly lightning, he could take the opportunity to capture her again and kill her directly. Just as Yun Chujio was about to walk out of the cave, she suddenly raised her large kitchen knife and slashed at her own shadow. Not only that, a small flame jumped out from her palm and burned the shadow on the ground. Mo let out a shrill scream and drifted out from Yun Chujio's shadow. Unwillingly, he turned into nothingness. Patter! A storage ring fell from the ground. Hei Shinjo picked up the storage ring, refined it, and sent her spiritual sense into it. Seeing the few things inside, she couldn't help but twitch her lips. This Mo was really poor. Other than some medicinal pills and sundries, there wasn't a single spirit stone inside. Only the cage made of 10,000-year-old black iron was not bad. Little did she know that Mo was trapped here, and the spirit tool and demonic tool in his hand were all absorbed by him. Guai Chao was quite happy, clamoring to eat those pills. Looking at Guai Chao's excited look, Yun Chujio knew that those pills were most likely highly toxic. She also picked one and fed it to Guai Chao, and asked it to sort out the prescription and antidote. Guai Chao was holding its breath. She had to hand in her homework after eating some pills. If she had known this would happen, she wouldn't have fucking eaten it. Although the Guai Chao was holding its breath, it still followed Yun Chujia's instructions. After communicating with the Guai Chao for a long time, Yun Chujio finally came to a conclusion. Most of the pills were refined from the red spiritual plants outside. Yun Chujio immediately decided that when she went out later, she would definitely pick more red spiritual plants outside. Since these spiritual plants could be used to refine pills, they should be able to be sold for money. Now that she was raising a bottomless pit, she had to open up the source and economize. Yun Chujio sat down cross-legged and released the Meng Yanshou to stand guard at the side. Only then did she begin to comb through the violent lightning spiritual power in her body. This fellow felt that it was about time, so he strolled out of the cave and then climbed up the peak with a clattering sound. The dark clouds in the sky had been keeping watch. When they saw Yun Chujio coming out, they naturally would not let her go. He Xinjiu was very miserable. She had to climb to the top of the peak and use Wu Yun's hand to flatten the peak. Otherwise, she would not be able to get out. Therefore, she could only suffer the lightning and climb to the top of the peak with all her might. Fortunately, she had been recuperating in the cave for a long time, so she could hold on for a while. Wu Yun in the sky was very puzzled. Was this smelly girl's brain not working properly? Why did she have to climb to the peak instead of staying in the cave? Wu Yun did not have time to think about anything else. Right now he only had one thought, and that was to kill this scourge. He Xinjiu kept climbing up. The mountain peak was like a candle. The higher she went, the thinner and steeper it became. If He Xinjiu didn't have the help of the sticky silk, she wouldn't have been able to continue climbing. She had spent a lot of effort and finally reached the peak. She found a place to rest but didn't continue climbing. Wu Yun's strikes were not always accurate. She should be able to attract Wu Yun to flatten the peak. Hey, that little Kai Yun in the sky, do you know why little sister is climbing up? Yun Chujio shouted at Wu Yun in the sky. Little Kai Yun? Little sister? Wu Yun was so angry that it was trembling. How would it know why she climbed up? It was most likely because her brain was not working properly. Yun Chujio continued with a smile. The reason why I climbed up is to be closer to you. I want to lower the difficulty for an idiot like you. Little sister, you are very kind, right? You don't have to thank me too much. Wu Yun was so angry that she was about to faint. She couldn't take it anymore. This stupid girl was really too angry. Rumble. 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 Wu Yun didn't care about anything else and continued to strike fiercely. Although most of the lightning struck Yun Chujia's body, there were still quite a number of lightning strikes that struck the peak. When Yun Chujio saw this, her heart was filled with joy. It was rare to see someone as smart as her in this world. How could she be so smart? The few animals in the spiritual beast bag were speechless. At this time, this black-hearted master was still narcissistic. This degree of narcissism was really unparalleled. When Yun Chujio could not resist it, she released a hua to help her resist it. After repeating this, the peak of the mountain was finally flattened. Yun Chujio took out the chopping board and tried it. Sure enough, it could fly. This guy sat on the chopping board and landed on the ground. The chopping board was not as abnormal as Yun Chujio. If Yun Chujio did not protect it with her body, its weapon spirit, the little silver dragon, would have been struck to death by the heavenly thunder long ago. Therefore, once Yun Chujio landed on the ground, she put away the chopping board. Then she said to Wu Yun in the sky with a smile, "Little fool. Thank you for helping me to remove the enchantment here. You are really a good Yun who helps others. If it weren't for you, I would really be worried to death. I don't have your stupid strength. I could even flatten the top of the mountain. Thank you." Wu Yun finally understood why Yun Chujio wanted to climb to the top of the mountain. It turned out that she used it to flatten the mountain peak and open the enchantment. Wu Yun was so angry that she was trembling. This stupid girl was too damn cunning. She was simply not human. The more Wu Yun thought about it, the angrier she got. She hacked even harder, wishing that she could chop He Xinjiu into pieces. When He Xinjiu could not take it anymore, she slithered into the cave and said slyly, "Little fool, I'll play with you after dinner." Wu Yun. Woo woo, she bullied Yun too much. Woo woo, she could not live anymore. Yun Chujo rested enough and came out to tease the dark clouds in the sky again. When she couldn't take it anymore, she hid in the cave to avoid the storm. She did it again and again until the next morning. Wu Yun had used up all of his thunder spiritual power, so he could only float away shivering. Hei Shinjo even waved her claws and shouted, "Little fool, next time when you come, bring more thunder energy. My dahua is not full yet." Wu Yun was so angry that he had nothing left to live for. He was crying as he floated. Wherever he went, heavy rain would fall. Those were his bitter tears. Yun Chujo curled her lips and released the 5 puppets to help her pick red herbs crazily. The 5 puppets' hands were like big shovels. Wherever they went, not to mention the red herbs, even a layer of the ground was scraped away. Yun Chujo did not mind. It was more important to put away the red herbs first. She just needed to go back and sort them out slowly. Hei Shinjo only put away the puppets when she was almost done picking them. Yun Chujo summoned her flying spirit tool and got on it. She flew in the direction she came from. She could only inform Prime Minister Sima and the others to come and pick her up after she had confirmed her position outside the valley. This guy estimated that although she had been flying the flying spirit tool with all her might, she should still be in the territory of the South Dragon Kingdom, so there shouldn't be any accidents. This fellow flew the flying spirit tool leisurely, humming a little song with a face full of happiness. This time the lightning struck her spiritual power directly to the 8th level of spirit illusion, so she was naturally very happy. This fellow directly adjusted the hidden spirit ring to the 8th level of spirit illusion. After all, her spiritual power was low now, so she didn't need to hide anything. Moreover, her spiritual power increased a little faster, which could also prove her identity as the Divine Phoenix emissary. This guy rode the flying spirit tool out of the valley entrance, but he was confused to find that there was a large dense forest below. She remembered that when she came in it was just a grassland. Did she take the wrong way? This guy had an ominous thought in his heart. Could it be that this bullshit Candle Sky Valley was not in the Southern Dragon Kingdom at all? This guy blinked his eyes, took out a disguise pill, and swallowed it. It was better to be prepared. Just as Hei Shinjo was thinking about it, the flying spiritual device suddenly sank. This guy's heart was like a dog crying. Could it be that this place also forbade flying? The miserable Hei Shinjo had no choice but to throw a few sticky silk nets at the trees below, which saved her life. She finally broke free from the sticky silk net and landed on the ground. Looking around, there were only trees and trees. She didn't know what exactly this place was. Hei Shinjo had no choice but to determine the direction and ride the giant rabbit to the east. After walking for a while, the fellow looked at his giant rabbit. This thing was too eye-catching, so he kept the giant rabbit and brought out Xiao Hong. Yun Chujo looked at Xiao Hong. She took out some ink and drew a black flame between Xiao Hong's eyebrows. Then she made Xiao Hong transform into 2 tails. In this way, Xiao Hong disguised herself as a low-level demon beast that was commonly seen in the Sky-High continent, the 2-tailed fire fox. Yun Chujo saw that there were no more flaws, so she rode on Xiao Hong and continued to move forward. After walking for half a day, they finally reached the edge of the forest. However, it was still forbidden to fly, so Yun Chujo could only continue to ride on Xiao Hong. After walking for a while, the sound of people walking and talking came from ahead. Yun Chuji's heart moved. Someone was coming. Not long after, she saw a group of people walking towards her. Some of them were riding on spiritual beasts, while others were walking. When they saw Yun Chujo, they were all stunned. Yun Chujo could not see through the spiritual power of those people. Apparently, their spiritual power was much higher than hers. Yun Chujo did not want to stir up trouble, so she moved to the side and gestured for those people to go over. Those people looked at Yun Chujo curiously. Seeing that her spiritual power was low, they did not make things difficult for her and walked past her. Yun Chujo was secretly relieved when she heard a man ask arrogantly, "Little girl, what are you doing in the Zhutian forest? Is there anything unusual in the Zhutian Valley?" Yun Chuji's heart skipped a beat. Zhutian forest? Zhutian Valley? It seemed that these people knew about the existence of Zhutian Valley. Did they know about Enigma? Yun Chujo said with a blank expression, I came here to pick herbs and didn't go into the depths of the forest, so I don't know if there's anything unusual in the Jutian Valley. Yun Chujo was afraid that people wouldn't believe her, so she took out a few herbs that she picked and shook them. The middle-aged man who asked the question wanted to continue asking, but a man next to him said, "How could a good-for-nothing in the 8th layer of the illusionary realm dare to get close to the Jutian Valley? I guess she is only picking some spiritual herbs outside the forest. Let's go to the Jutian Valley to take a look." The Imperial Preceptor said that there is a big change inside, so we should hurry there. If we delay, I'm afraid the Imperial Preceptor will blame us. Hearing that, the middle-aged man looked at Yun Chujo a few more times. Seeing that Yun Chujo was calm and did not show any guilty expression, he did not ask any more questions. Soon the group of people disappeared. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes. Imperial Tutor? A great change? This guy felt that if those people found out that the Jutian Valley's enchantment had disappeared, they might suspect her. It was better to escape quickly. Panda N0V1. This guy quickly adjusted the level of his spiritual power to level 6 of spirit illusion. He changed his clothes and then took a disguise pill. His appearance changed again. She picked up Xiaohong and ran out. She had to leave before those people returned, or else she might be in trouble. Hei Xinzhou risked her life and finally left the forest and arrived at a public road. This guy was slightly relieved. He mixed with the crowd and walked along the public road. After walking for a short while, a few people on wildebeest caught up with him. One of them was the middle-aged man who asked the question. The man came to Yun Chujia's side and stopped his wildebeest to size her up. Seeing that neither her appearance nor her spiritual power was the same as the little girl from before, he did not say anything and let Yun Chujo leave with the others. Yun Chujo could not help but sigh in her heart. As expected, one must be careful when using the 10,000-year-old ship. What a close call! While sighing in her heart, the man pondered. The spiritual power of the pedestrians here seemed to be similar to that of the people of the Jingmu Kingdom. It seemed that this place should also be a second-class country. However, she did not know which second-class country it was. Yun Chujo followed the crowd and walked forward. From afar, she saw a magnificent city. Yun Chujo originally thought that she was used to seeing high-rise buildings in her previous life. No city would shock her much. However, the city in front of her still stunned her. The city wall that almost reached the clouds was built from an unknown material. It reflected the light of the sun, making it so dazzling that people could hardly open their eyes. In the middle of the city gate, there were 3 magnificent words written, Starry Night City. There were several soldiers guarding the city gate, and every person who entered had to check their identity documents. Starry Night City? Yun Chujia's heart trembled. Starry Night City was the capital of the second-class country. The Star Sun country and the Jingmu country were both vassal countries of the first-class country, the Juntian country. How could she accidentally bump into the capital of the Star Sun country? Yun Chujo complained in her heart. Of course, she could not take out her identity document. Otherwise, there was no way to explain why she had come here when she was clearly in the Southern Dragon country. It was simply asking for trouble. However, if she turned around and went back, those people from before might suspect her. This was really a dilemma. For now, it was safer to sneak into Starry Night City first and then think of a way to leave. However, the soldiers guarding the city were very strict. How could she sneak in? Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and observed for a while. She realized that not everyone had to be questioned. Some people might have special identities, and the servants they brought would not be questioned. They could directly follow their master in. Yun Chujo rolled her eyes and fixed her gaze on a fat old man. Based on the conversation between the fat old man and the servant, Yun Chujo had already determined that this fat old man loved money like his life, and he seemed to be very popular in Starry Night City. Yun Chujo moved closer to the fat old man and said pitifully in a low voice, "Grandpa Zheng, I came out in a hurry today and forgot to bring my identity document. Can you bring me in?" The fat old man looked at Yun Chujo suspiciously. He didn't have any impression of her, but this little girl called him Grandpa Zheng right from the start. Obviously, she knew him. The fat old man frowned. "No, I don't know you. What if you are a criminal?" "Wouldn't I be a criminal?" "Grandpa Zheng, you are a noble who forgets things. I am a rich man. My father said that he owed you 100,000 high-grade spirit stones and asked me to return it to you. As Yun Chujo said that, she transferred the 100,000 high-grade spirit stones to the fat old man. She thought to herself that even if she didn't know anyone, she should know about spirit stones, right? The fat old man naturally understood that this 100,000 spirit stones was not something he owed. It was the benefit that this little girl gave him. He thought about it again. This little girl was only in the 6th layer of the illusionary realm. Even if she wanted to do something bad, she didn't have the ability to do so. He might as well earn this benefit. Thus, the fat old man's face immediately revealed a kind smile. Look at my memory. So it turns out that I have a lot of it. Let's go. Grandfather will bring you in. Don't be so careless next time. Yun Chujo smiled and agreed. She thought to herself that this fat old man had changed his face quite quickly. When it was the time for the fat old man to line up, the soldiers guarding the city did not interrogate his servants and directly let them pass. After entering the city, Yun Chujo naturally would not follow the fat old man anymore. She found an excuse to separate from the fat old man and his group. This fellow felt that the most important thing now was to find an inn to settle down. Then, he would contact Prime Minister Sima and think of a way to return to the East Phoenix country. Unexpectedly, the lodging actually required an identity document. What the fuck? What was so shameful about this starry night city? Why was the investigation so strict? Hei Shinjo was troubled. It was fine during the day, but at night she couldn't just wander on the streets, right? Wasn't she waiting to be caught? She rolled her eyes. The fat old man seemed to be an innkeeper. She could make some plans with him. The old man was greedy for money. As long as he had enough money, he wasn't afraid that he wouldn't take her in. Therefore, Hei Shinjo strolled along the street and finally found the Zheng families inn run by the fat old man. When the fat old man saw Yun Chujo come in, he narrowed his eyes and said with a smile, Duo, what do you want to talk to me about? Grandpa Zheng, can I talk to you for a moment? The fat old man blinked his eyes and brought Yun Chujo to the inner room. Tell me, what is it? Grandpa Zheng, to be honest, I ran out of the house in a fit of anger with my father, so I don't want to go home to retrieve the identity document. Can you let me stay here for a few days? The fat old man was about to refuse, but Yun Chujo raised 3 fingers. 30,000 upper-grade spirit stones per night. The fat old man's words immediately turned into a kind smile. You child, you're really naughty. Alright, then you can stay here first. Yun Chujo generously transferred 150,000 high-grade spirit stones to the fat old man. Grandpa Zheng, I'll pay the room fee for 5 days first. If I continue to stay there, then I'll continue to pay. When the fat old man thought about how he had easily earned 250,000 high-grade spirit stones today, he was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He generously arranged for Yun Chujo to have a room on the 2nd floor facing the street. Yun Chujo returned to her room to wash up. Just as she was about to take out Prime Minister Sima's voice transmission talisman to study the countermeasures, she heard a commotion on the street outside. Yun Chujo opened the window and looked outside through a crack. She saw many soldiers checking on passers-by and even entering various shops to search. Yun Chujo's heart sank. From the looks of it, it was obvious that she was determined to find her. Although she had disguised her appearance and spiritual power, she did not have an identity document. After checking, she would definitely be exposed. Although that fat old man was greedy, he would definitely hand her over under threat. Moreover, the fat old man was not the only person in this inn. Even if the fat old man wanted to protect her, someone might report her. What should she do? Yun Chujo's forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat. The great void mirror was still in hibernation. Otherwise she could go in and hide. Just as Yun Chujo was hopping around anxiously, the little black bird in the spiritual beast pouch said, Master, why don't you take a rejuvenation pill? After you turn into a child, naturally no one will suspect you. Xiao Hanyo said with a smile. Yun Chujo felt that this method was feasible. It was normal for a young child's family not to give her an identity document. Moreover, no one would associate a child like her with the little girl from before. However, the gigolo only gave her an antidote last time. Although she already knew the prescription for the Guai Chow, she did not have the few herbs inside, so she had not refined the antidote. If she ate the rejuvenation pill, she would probably have to spend some effort to find the missing herbs. Should she take the rejuvenation pill or not? Yun Chujo saw through the crack in the window that a few people without identity documents were taken away. There were even some who resisted and were killed immediately. Without hesitation, she changed into a set of clothes and swallowed a rejuvenation pill. At this moment, the fat old man's forehead was also covered in sweat. He felt that he had most likely picked up a big trouble. He originally thought that it was just a little girl without identity documents. Who would have thought that she was actually an important criminal of the imperial court? If the person was found in his shop, he would also be implicated. The fat old man gritted his teeth. If it really did not work out, he could only bleed a little. Nothing was more important than his old life. When the time came, he would say that he deliberately left her in the inn in order to stabilize her, and was preparing to report her. Right, that was what he was going to do. Just as the fat old man made up his mind and was about to go out to report and make contributions, the hem of his clothes was gently tugged by someone. The fat old man looked down and saw a pretty girl doll looking up at him. Her eyes were curved like a crescent moon. The fat old man was stunned. Where did this little girl come from? She was probably a customer's child. How careless. Such a pretty little girl could easily be abducted by human traffickers. Grandpa, this is the note that sister asked me to give you. The little girl handed a note to the fat old man. The fat old man opened the note in confusion and saw a line of words written on it. I'm leaving. This is the child that I abducted. Do as you see fit. Take the 250,000 high-grade spirit stones as your compensation. The fat old man. The fat old man's heart was like a dog that was crying. For a moment he did not know what to feel. The fat old man was stunned for a moment. On second thought, it was a good thing that the scourge had left so that he would not be implicated. Otherwise, even if he reported it, he might get into trouble. However, what about this little girl? The fat old man lowered his head and looked at the little girl. Was this really the child that the girl had abducted? That was not right. When that little girl came in, she was clearly alone. When did this child come in? The fat old man thought about it again. This little girl was small. Perhaps he didn't notice when she came in? The fat old man bent down and asked little Nine kindly, Little girl, when did you come in? You call that little girl sister? Is she really your sister? Little Nine had an innocent and romantic look on her face. I just came in. Sister bought me candy to eat. I like sister. When the fat old man heard this, he thought for a while. He guessed that the smelly girl had used candy to trick this little girl. She was really wicked. Little doll, where do you come from? Grandpa will send you home. Little Nine bit her finger and looked at the fat old man blankly. My house is a very, very big yard. There are many, many rooms inside. Sob, sob, I want my mother, sob, I want my father. The fat old man immediately felt numb. Although he was greedy for money, when such a delicate little girl cried, it was simply heartbreaking. Moreover, he heard little Nine say that there were many, many yards in the house. That was definitely a rich family. If he sent the little girl back, he might receive a great reward. When the fat old man thought of this, his eyes flashed with a bright light. This was a good opportunity to make a fortune. The fat old man revealed an amiable smile and comforted. Little child, Grandpa will help you find a home. Come, Grandpa will give you candy to eat. When little Nine ate the candy, she immediately stopped crying and said with a smile, Grandpa is really a good person. Grandpa will make a fortune. The fat old man immediately smiled so much that he could not close his mouth. This little girl really knew how to talk. Just as the fat old man was laughing and teasing little Nine, there was a commotion outside. The fat old man's heart tightened, but when he remembered that the little girl had already escaped and was dead without any evidence, the government could not do anything to him. Therefore, he carried little Nine out of the inner room. Sure enough, there were soldiers interrogating the employees. The employees in the shop were all trained by the fat old man. Moreover, if something happened to the fat old man, they would not be able to recover. Therefore, they answered very carefully and did not say anything. The fat old man saw that the leader was an acquaintance and said with a smile, "Bossly, why are you free today? What happened?" The little leader nodded to the fat old man. The higher-ups asked to search a little girl. Every house must be searched. This is a routine matter. Boss Zheng, don't mind. What are you talking about? We are people of Starry Night City, so we naturally have to cooperate with the government. You can search as much as you want. This is a registered customer. You can check it. As the fat old man spoke, he handed the guest registration book to the little leader. The little leader took the book and looked curiously at the little girl behind the fat old man. He asked, "Boss Zheng, is this little girl your granddaughter?" The fat old man smiled and said, "She's the child of a distant relative. She asked me to take care of her for a few days. I'll send her back in a few days." The little leader praised her a few times and did not ask any more questions. Then, he led the soldiers and began to search the guest room. The fat old man was still a little nervous. He did not know if that smelly girl had really left. If she had not left, he would be in big trouble. Fortunately, the soldiers who were searching quickly came back, indicating that they did not find any suspicious people. Only then did the fat old man's heart relax. He secretly gave the little leader some spirit stones, and the little leader left with his men. Seeing that the situation had calmed down, the fat old man looked at little Nine, who was eating candy, and remembered something. He asked, "Little doll, tell Grandpa, is your home in Starry Night City?" Little Nine's eyes twinkled. Little Nine's home is very, very far away. There's a lot of money at home. Woo-woo, I want my mother, I want my father. When the fat old man saw that little Nine would cry at the mention of home, he had no choice but to comfort her again. He thought to himself, looks like this little doll's home isn't in Starry Night City. When he entered the city previously, he didn't see this little guy either. Perhaps that smelly girl hid this little guy in someone's car and snuck into the city? Could really be like this. Otherwise, that smelly girl wouldn't have left for a period of time. She probably went to look for this little kid during that period of time. It had to be said that the fat old man's imagination was really strong. He helped He Shinjo find all the loopholes, but he actually didn't suspect a thing. Instead, he wanted to find out where little Nine's home was by every means possible. He wanted to make a fortune. A trace of craftiness flashed in Zyogia's eyes. This round was over. At this time the sky had already darkened. The fat old man looked at Xiaojiu. Such a little doll probably needed someone to take care of it. He planned to hire a maid to take care of Xiaojiu. Of course, Xiaojiu did not want a maid to be in the way, so she said softly, "Grandpa, I can wash my face and comb my hair. I can also sleep. Don't spend money to hire people." Although the fat old man didn't believe that such a small person could take care of herself, he was still very happy to save some money. During dinner, the fat old man saw that Yun Chujo was indeed eating well and was very obedient, so he gave up the idea of finding someone to take care of Xiao Xiaojiu. The fat old man arranged for Xiao Xiaojiu to be in a room in the backyard, next to his room. If anything happened, he would be the first to know. This was a golden baby, so nothing could go wrong. Little Nine saw the fat old man looking at her like he was looking at a spirit stone, and she couldn't help but laugh in her heart. In fact, people who were greedy for money were quite cute, because once they caught their weakness, it was simply too easy to fool them. Little Nine stood on the small stool and washed up for a while, then lay on the bed to think about her next step. Those herbs that were used to refine the antidote would probably take a lot of effort to find. With her small body, she naturally couldn't do it, so she could only let Yoon Jichen and Prime Minister Sima help her find it. She took out the voice transmission talisman and was about to send it to Prime Minister Sima when her heart skipped a beat. Why not ask the gigolo if he still had the antidote? If he still had it, he wouldn't need to trouble Prime Minister Sima to collect the herbs. Moreover, once the gigolo came, he could easily bring her out of here. Yun Chujo thought of this and took out Di Biming's voice transmission talisman. She made a noise and said that if Di Biming had the antidote, he would send one over to her. If he didn't have the antidote, he could also help her collect all the herbs. To be honest, Yun Chujo was a little nervous. The gigolo was no different from an ice sculpture now. She didn't know if he would care about her life or death. After a while, Dee Biming didn't reply. Although Hei Shinjo was mentally prepared, she still felt stifled. Hei Shinjo did not sleep well these days, so she fell asleep quickly even though she was frustrated. The next morning, Hei Shinjo finally received Dee Biming's reply. There were only 2 dry words. Wait. Yun Chujo pursed her lips. Was he playing with her? Tui. This guy did not ask much. He just told her to wait. The fat old man would ask Yun Chujo some questions from time to time. He just wanted to know where her home was so that he could send her back. Yun Chujia's heart skipped a beat. Fuck. She was so stupid. Wasn't this a ready-made person that could be used? Why didn't she remember? She could totally make up that she was the child of a big family in the East Phoenix country. As long as she left the Star Sun country, she could meet up with Prime Minister Sima and the others. Just when Hei Shinjo was vexed, she heard the fat old man muttering to himself, I wonder where this little girl is from. As long as she is not from the East Phoenix country, it will be fine. Little Nine blinked her eyes and asked curiously, Grandpa, what did you say? Why is it fine as long as she is not from the East Phoenix country? The fat old man was already used to the little girl's sometimes smart and sometimes cute appearance. Therefore, he was not surprised that she would ask such a question. He said in a low voice, the borders of our Star Sun country and East Phoenix country are tightly sealed. It is impossible to pass through without a document issued by the government. Moreover, I heard that no one is allowed to enter or leave these days. The fat old man could not help but laugh when he said this. He had really lost his mind. Why was he talking about this with a 3 or 4-year-old child? Yun Chujia's heart was shocked. Why did Star Sun country seal the borders for no reason? Could it be that they had a plot? No, she had to remind Prime Minister Sima. Therefore, Yun Chujo took the time to send a voice transmission talisman to Prime Minister Sima to remind him to pay attention to the Star Sun Kingdom's movements. On this day, the fat old man was checking the accounts while Little Nine was sitting on the chair with a candy ball in her mouth. She was swaying her calves leisurely. At this moment, the originally noisy room quieted down. Everyone looked at the white-clothed man who walked in from the door. With just a glance, everyone lowered their heads and did not dare to look at the man who looked like a god. The powerful pressure made it difficult for them to breathe. The fat old man was slightly better than the others. Just as he was about to brace himself and ask the man in white if he was staying in the hotel, Little Nine jumped down from the chair and ran over. Daddy! Daddy! You're finally here to pick up Little Nine. A certain someone. Little Nine hugged a certain someone's thigh and refused to let go. Needless to say, from her current point of view, the pretty boy was even more handsome. He was so handsome that it was almost unbearable to look at. She really had good taste. She had booked this monster early on. Putting everything else aside, their little monkey would definitely look very good in the future. Just as Little Nine was thinking happily, she heard a cold and piercing voice coming from above her head. Let go. Little Nine pursed her lips, as if a basin of ice water was poured on the top of her head. Damn it, she almost forgot that this person was a bastard who had no emotions. Little Nine had no choice but to let go of her claws and looked at a certain venerable pitifully. A certain venerable looked deeply at Little Nine and said coldly, Daddy? Little Nine bit her finger and said pitifully, Daddy, I won't make you angry in the future. Don't abandon me. Although the people outside the shop were a little afraid of a certain venerable's imposing manner, when they saw the pitiful little girl, they immediately looked at a certain venerable with disapproval. The spectators were discussing among themselves. Look at his looks. He actually had the heart to throw away his own daughter. What a scum. That's right. That little girl is as pretty as jade. If she was my daughter, I would definitely cherish her like a treasure. To have met such a scum of the father, that little girl must have suffered a lot. That little girl just tugged at his clothes and he even made her let go. What kind of person is this? He's simply too cold and heartless. When Little Nine heard everyone's discussion, she was laughing in her heart. Alright, she was only so good for nothing. It was also good to tease this gigolo to vent her anger. The fat old man also looked at Dee Biming with disapproval. This person seemed to be quite rich, but with this attitude towards the little girl, he probably wouldn't give him much money. He was really unlucky. A certain venerable's face was calm. He lowered his head to look at the pitiful little nine and said coldly, "Let's go." After saying that, a certain venerable took the lead to leave the inn. Little nine chased after him with her short legs and shouted, "Daddy hug! Daddy hug!" A certain venerable acted as if he didn't hear her, and didn't even turn his head. The onlookers couldn't stand it anymore and started to criticize. "How can you be a father? Your daughter is so young, yet you don't even hug her. Could she be a stepfather? Your daughter is so cute, yet you treat her this way. If you don't want to give her to me, I just happen to want such an ice-cold and cute daughter." A certain someone remained indifferent and continued to walk forward. He just needed to send this troublemaker back to East Phoenix country safely. He wasn't interested in anything else. At this moment he heard a loud sound behind him, followed by the little girl's heart-wrenching cries, "Woo-woo. Daddy is a bad person. Daddy won't hug me. Daddy doesn't love me anymore." This time, the surrounding spectators were filled with righteous indignation. If it wasn't for a certain someone's aura being too strong, these people would have already gone up to beat him up. A certain someone frowned and finally turned around. He saw the little person sitting on the ground with tears streaming down her face. She was crying pitifully. A certain someone hesitated for a moment. He looked at little nine and said coldly, "Come here." Little nine blinked her eyes and ran to a certain person's side with her short legs. Then she stretched out her two small arms and said softly, "Daddy hug." The certain person's pupils shrank. Looking at the dust on little nine's body, he said coldly, "Cleaning spell." Little nine pursed her lips, but still used the cleaning spell. She said pitifully, "Daddy, can I hug you now?" A certain man expressionlessly stretched out his long arm and carried little nine up. When he turned around and was about to leave, the fat old man finally mustered up his courage and said, "Young master, this old man has taken in your daughter for a few days, and the expenses are not small either. What do you think?" The fat old man did not want to be so explicit in asking for money, but he finally understood that this man had no intention of giving him any money. That little girl had even forgotten about him, her savior. Once she had a father, he could only shamelessly ask for the reward himself. A certain elder didn't even look at the fat old man as he walked forward. Little nine was lying on a certain elder's shoulder. She waved her chubby little claws at the fat old man. "Grandfather, didn't big sister give you 250,000 high-grade spirit stones? We're even." The fat old man looked at little nine's fox-like eyes and was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Could it be that this little girl wasn't abducted by that smelly girl? Chapter 3446. Feeding the dog with emotion. Although the fat old man was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood, he didn't dare to continue chasing after her. If that little girl said anything extraordinary, he wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. The fat old man did some calculations. These days he had only eaten some food. Previously, that smelly girl had given him 250,000 high-grade spirit stones. No matter how he looked at it, he had already made a huge profit. Thinking about it, the fat old man did not hold his anger anymore. He glared at little nine, then turned around and left. Little nine curled her lips and pondered in her heart. She did not know how the pretty boy had entered the city. Didn't Starry Night City want to check the identity document? A certain person carried little nine and quickly arrived at the city gate. Not only did the people guarding the city not stop them, but they also bowed respectfully. Yun Chujio was very curious. After walking for a distance, she asked, "Father, how did you enter the city? Why do those people seem to be afraid of you?" A certain someone placed little nine on the ground and said coldly, "Is it fun to tease me? If you call me father again, I will throw you back to Starry Night City." Little nine giggled. "So what if you don't call me daddy? I'm just trying to get out of the city successfully. If I call you Prince Charming, those people will think I'm a little crazy." "Prince Charming, you haven't answered me yet. How did you get into the city?" A certain someone said coldly, "I just killed an official and stole his identity document." Yun Chujio. "All right, those who had strength were capricious. If it were her, even if she could steal the identity document, she wouldn't dare to use it. Who knew if she would run into someone she knew? A certain someone summoned his flying spirit tool, brought Yun Chujo up, and drove towards the border. Little Xiaozhou said anxiously, "Idle daddy, quickly give me the antidote." "Male god daddy?" A certain someone looked at Little Nine coldly. Little Nine had an innocent look on her face. Didn't she not allow her to call him daddy? Then calling him male god daddy would be fine, right? Infuriating you to death. Their gazes converged in the air and sparks flew in all directions. Finally, Little Nine was defeated. She pouted and said, "Where's the antidote?" "There is no antidote. This is the herb that you lack. However, there is still one herb that has yet to be found." Yun Chujo looked at the herb that Di Biming had given her. There was still one missing ghost face orchid. She could not help but frown. This ghost face orchid was the most difficult to find. Prime Minister Sima had not found it either. Could it be that she still had to be a child for a long time? Di Biming saw that the little girl was squatting on the ground and had a worried look on her face. He hesitated for a moment and said, "This venerable one knows a place that might have ghost face orchids. This venerable one will bring you to pick a few of them." The worried look on Xiaoxiao's face disappeared. Her bright smile lit up the entire cabin. She hugged a certain someone's thigh and jumped up and down. "Idle daddy, I knew you were the best. I love you the most. Let go." A certain someone gently flicked his sleeve, and Xiao Xiao fell on her butt. Xiao Xiao. Damn it. She decided to feed all the emotions in her heart to the dogs. Without even looking at Xiao Xiaojiu, who was sitting on the ground, a certain venerable walked out of the cabin. Xiao Xiaojiu stood up, rubbed her little butt, and scolded, "Damn it, if I wasn't afraid of teasing you to your old ailment, I wouldn't have been able to tease you to death." The little black bird inside the spirit beast bag secretly said, "Master, with your little body, you can't tease me even if you want to." Xiao Xiaojiu looked at her small arms and legs, looking like she wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Yes, even Xiao Longbao was gone, so why would she flirt with me? Chapter 3447, You Feed Me. Xiao Xiaojiu climbed onto the chair, feeling a little discouraged. She swayed her short legs and chewed on the spiritual fruit. This guy comforted himself. No matter what, since the gigolo could come, it meant that he still cared about her. When he unsealed another layer of the seal, he might not have to seal his 7 emotions and 6 desires anymore. After this guy calmed himself down, he threw away the finished fruit core, climbed down the chair, and stomped out of his cabin to look for Di Biming. A certain someone was sitting cross-legged in meditation. Although he knew that Yun Chujo was here, he didn't intend to pay attention to her. Little Nine squatted in front of a certain someone and looked at his face. The more she looked at him, the more she felt that she had good taste. She couldn't help but reach out her little paws to touch his face. Unfortunately, before her little paws touched his face, she fell on her butt. One of the figures opened his eyes and stared coldly at Little Nine, who was rubbing her butt. He said coldly, "Since you're here, come and cultivate." Little Nine pouted and could only sit next to one of the figures, combing the lightning spiritual force in her body. Little Nine was quite serious in her cultivation at the beginning. Later, she fell asleep in a daze and her body could not help but lean toward one of the figures next to her. A certain person frowned and moved to the side. Little Nine fell to the ground with a thud. Fortunately, there was a thick blanket on the ground. This fellow opened his eyes in a daze and looked for a moment before continuing to sleep soundly. When a certain person saw Little Nine's heartless look, his face remained expressionless as he continued to meditate and cultivate. After a moment, a certain person opened his eyes and took out a quilt from his storage ring to cover Little Nine. Little Nine slept until evening. When she opened her eyes, she saw the blanket on her body, and then looked at a certain venerable who was still meditating. The corners of her mouth curled up as she said sweetly, "Northern Sea Daddy." Little Nine saw the cold eyes of a certain venerable and immediately changed her words, "Big brother Northern Sea, you were the one who covered me with the blanket, right? I knew you would feel sorry for me." A certain someone opened his eyes and looked at Little Nine coldly. He said emotionlessly, "I was afraid that you would get sick and delay my journey. Little Nine smiled even more happily. Big Brother Beiming, you still say you don't feel sorry for me? Aren't you worried that I would get sick because you feel sorry for me? A certain someone decided to ignore Little Nine's shameless self-talk. Hence, he closed his eyes and continued to cultivate, ignoring the smiling Little Nine. Little Nine pursed her lips, rubbed her stomach and said, Big Brother Beiming, I'm hungry. There was no reaction. Little Nine stretched her neck and shouted again, Big Brother Beiming, I'm hungry. There was still no reaction. Little Nine was furious. As expected, no matter how loud the noise was, it could not wake up a person who pretended not to hear. This fellow rolled his eyes and took out a table from his storage ring. Then, he took out a few dishes and stood on the small stool to eat. A certain person heard that something was wrong. He hesitated for a moment and opened his eyes. He saw the little person standing on the chair and grabbing the food on the plate with his hands. His face looked like a small cat. His body was also covered in vegetable soup and rice grains. A certain person frowned and said coldly, Your body became smaller. Did your brain also disappear? Don't you know how to use chopsticks when eating? Knowing is one thing but doing is another. My fingers are so short, how can I use chopsticks? Why don't you feed me? Little Nine said righteously. Chapter 34-48. Emotionless ice sculpture. As soon as Little Nine finished speaking, she felt the coldness emanating from a certain person. The person said pitifully, It's fine if you don't want to. I don't usually beg others for things that I can do myself. Little Nine stretched out her fleshy claws to grab the ribs that were furthest away from her. As the distance was too far, and her small arms were short, she was practically sprawled on the table. Even the small stool under her feet was on the verge of collapsing. Seeing that Little Nine was about to fall to the ground, a certain someone grabbed Little Nine by her collar and lifted her up. Little Nine immediately struggled like a little bastard. Put me down, I want to eat meat. You want to eat back in your own room. A certain someone grabbed Little Nine and directly threw her into her own cabin, then slammed the door shut with a bang. Little Nine, a certain honored guest, returned to his own cabin and saw the mess on the ground. His gaze was slightly cold. He waved his sleeves, and even the carpet on the ground was replaced with a new set. Only then did he continue to meditate and cultivate. After a short while, a certain honored guest felt that there was someone peeping at the door. He frowned slightly. He didn't need to look to know that the person peeping was definitely that little rascal. Little Nine, who was peeping through the gap of the door, cursed silently. It was nothing more than a heartbreaker, a scumbag, and someone without a conscience. After cursing for a while, she saw that the certain someone was not paying attention to her. She could only take her short legs and return to her cabin. This fellow was so frustrated that she made herself look like a little kitten. She was also unable to get that heartbreaker to feed her. It was as if she had thrown a stone at her own feet. She was extremely depressed. However, very quickly, a crafty look flashed across this fellow's eyes. If you don't feed me, then I'll let you sleep with me. After Little Nine had washed her face, she pushed open the cabin door of a certain someone with her short legs. A certain someone finally opened his eyes and looked at her. What's the matter? Little Nine staggered a few steps and then pounced on a certain someone. A certain someone wanted to slap her away, but looking at her small body, he reckoned that she would be seriously injured if he slapped her. He could only use his hand to support her. What are you doing? Big Brother Beiming, I can't sleep. Sing a lullaby for me. Little Nine said as she blinked her starry eyes. A certain someone's expression turned even colder. If you can't sleep, then cultivate. Little Nine. Damn it. This psychopath wasn't just any ordinary difficult person to deal with. Little Nine pursed her lips, sat down cross-legged next to a certain someone, and began to cultivate. Of course, this fellow's intentions weren't in the wine. After a short while, his body fell in the direction of a certain someone. Seeing that he was about to lean on a certain someone's body, a certain someone stood up and changed places. The miserable Little Nine fell to the ground with a thud. Little Nine was so angry. She punched the ground a few times with her small fists and pointed at a certain someone with an aggrieved expression. Are you still human? I'm so young now, and you're still bullying me like this. The certain someone acted as if he didn't hear her and didn't even look at Little Nine. Little Nine was instantly discouraged. Talking to an emotionless ice sculpture was simply a waste of time. Fuck, go to sleep. Little Nine took out a blanket and pillow and fell asleep on the ground. Soon she fell asleep soundly. After a certain someone felt that Little Nine's breathing was stable, he opened his eyes and glanced at her. Then, he closed his eyes and continued to cultivate. The next morning Little Nine was alive and kicking again. Prince Charming, where's the ghost face orchid? How long will it take us to get there? This guy was too lazy to call him daddy and brother biming to tease a certain someone. Chapter 3449. Ghost Face Orchid. It is said that there are ghost face orchids in the Orchid Valley. We will reach the Orchid Valley in about 10 days, Biming said faintly. Little Nine took out a piece of sugar ball and threw it into her mouth. She asked vaguely, then where is the Orchid Valley? Is it dangerous? The Orchid Valley is in the territory of the first-class country, Juntian country. Biming did not say anything about whether it was dangerous or not. Obviously, he felt that there was no need to answer Little Nine's question. Little Nine curled her lips. So what if her spiritual power was high? Tui. Sooner or later, she would also become powerful. In the next few days, Little Nine provoked a certain someone with different tricks. Unfortunately, the certain someone was not moved at all and allowed Little Nine to play tricks. If it was an ordinary person, they would have been discouraged long ago. However, Heishinjo was obviously not an ordinary person. This fellow was stimulated by his fighting spirit and was simply not tired of it. On this day, they finally arrived at the entrance of the Yulan Valley. Heishinjo followed Biming out of the flying spirit tool. When she saw that there were many people gathered in the distance, she could not help but wonder, why were there so many people? Could it be that they were all here to look for the ghost face orchid? Why didn't they enter? At this moment, those people's gazes were also looking at Biming and Heishinjo. To be exact, they were looking at Biming. Where did this young man come from? Why was his aura so shocking? What surprised them was that they could not see through Biming's cultivation, which meant that this young man's spiritual power was higher than theirs. Especially some of the women, who were looking at Biming with infatuation. Such a handsome and noble man was the best choice for their husband. They had come to the Yulan Valley for the right reason. Heishinjo was furious when she saw the infatuated gazes of those women. What the fuck? Where were they looking at? This was her man. A bunch of shameless flirtatious bitches. If she had known this would happen, she would have let the pretty boy eat a disguise pill. What a miscalculation. This guy rolled his eyes and hugged Biming's thigh. Daddy, hug. Daddy? Disappointment appeared on the faces of those women. So he had already married and had children. What a pity. Biming's gaze was slightly cold as he stared at Little Nine, who was begging for a hug. In the end, he still carried her. He was also very surprised to see so many people at the entrance of the Yulan Valley. He had originally planned to pick a few ghost face orchids and leave. He did not expect that there would be complications. What were these people gathered here for? Just as Biming was thinking, a woman walked over shyly and timidly. Young master, are you also here for the ghost face orchids? Biming faintly acknowledged and coldly said, why don't you guys go in? The woman was clearly a little dizzy from Biming's voice. After a while she said, young master, you might not know this, but this Yulan Valley is not always open. You need a specific time to enter. In less than an hour, the Yulan Valley will open. Biming nodded his head indifferently and did not say anything else. When the woman saw that Biming did not speak, she continued, although there is a ghost face orchid in the Yulan Valley, the ghost face orchid is different from other herbs. It is difficult for ordinary people to find its traces, so even if you can enter the Yulan Valley, you might not be able to find the ghost face orchid. When the woman said this, her gaze turned to look at Biming. She said with a hint of self-satisfaction, however, our Juntian Kingdom's imperial clan has a treasure to look for the ghost face orchid. Young master will follow this princess in a while. You will definitely be able to find the ghost face orchid. Chapter 3450 The people from Zhongli's hateful palace had also arrived. Princess? Little Nine narrowed her eyes. No wonder the others seemed to be afraid of this woman. So she was the princess of the June Heaven Kingdom? However, this princess was really shameless. When the other women heard that her gigolo was already a father, they knew that it was difficult and retreated. However, this one came forward. Could it be that she wanted the gigolo to divorce his wife and marry someone else? Although Little Nine wanted to curse the princess in her heart, she thought of what she said. If she couldn't bear it, she would mess up the big plan. It was better to get the ghost face orchid first. When Little Nine was thinking about it, she heard Di Biming say coldly, "No need." Little Nine's heart was a little complicated. On one hand, she was satisfied with the cold attitude of a certain lord towards the other girls. On the other hand, she was a little annoyed at the one-track mind of a certain lord. No matter what, she had to get the ghost face orchid first. There was a moment of gloominess on the princess' face, but soon a smile appeared on her face. Since young master is confident, then Ziyu will not disturb you. After Princess Ziyu finished speaking, she did not continue to pester her and returned to her own team. An hour later, the thick fog at the entrance of the Yulon Valley dispersed, revealing the entrance of the valley. Princess Ziyu was the first to walk in, and the people behind her also followed her in. Little Nine whispered into a certain venerable's ear, "Why didn't you agree with Princess Ziyu just now? This way we can save a lot of trouble." A certain venerable was a little uncomfortable with the hot air that Little Nine exhaled. He tilted his head slightly and said, "If you can't find it, just kill them and snatch the ghost face orchid." Little Nine. All right, there was nothing that could not be solved by snatching. Of course, the prerequisite was that you were strong enough. Just as a certain venerable was about to carry Little Nine into the Yulon Valley, another group of people came from the distance. Although Little Nine could not see through their spiritual power, it was clear that their spiritual power was much higher than Princess Ziyu and the others. Little Nine caught a glimpse of the symbol on the lower right corner of their clothes and her heart tightened. The Li Hate Palace? They were actually people from the Li Hate Palace. They were also here for the ghost face orchid? Although the ghost face orchid was precious, the Li Hate Palace could definitely demand it from the June Tiantian Kingdom. Why would they need to personally send people here? Could it be that there were other treasures in this Orchid Valley? Just as Yun Chujo was pondering, the people from the Li Hate Palace had already arrived in front of them. Their gazes paused on Di Biming for a moment and did not say anything else. They quickly entered the Orchid Valley. Di Biming's eyes were also slightly surprised. After the people from the Lihan Palace had left, he carried Little Nine and entered the Yulon Valley. Once they entered the Yulon Valley, Yun Chujo finally understood the origins of the Yulon Valley. There were all kinds of orchids everywhere. Although the varieties were not particularly precious, they still looked very pleasing to the eye. Di Biming carried Little Nine and walked for a while. He frowned slightly. He did not expect the Yulon Valley to be so big. If they continued to walk aimlessly, they would probably return empty-handed. Hence, he followed the trail of footsteps and chased after Princess Ziyu. Although Di Biming was carrying Little Nine, his speed was still very fast. He could see Princess Ziyu and the others from afar, but he did not see the people from the Li Hate Palace. However, Di Biming and Yun Chujia's priority was to pick the ghost face orchid, so they did not pay too much attention to the whereabouts of the people from the Li Hate Palace. Princess Ziyu glanced at Di Biming, who was walking over, and felt a little pleased. She had rejected him so readily before, but now he was still following them. Chapter 3451 My father's surname is Bei. Princess Ziyu's gaze was infatuated as she looked at Di Biming, who was approaching her. She had never seen such an outstanding man, especially that kind of unapproachable aura. It made her very infatuated. Even if this man already had a wife and children, she would still want him. As for his wife and this little bastard, she would just find an opportunity to kill them. although Princess Ziyu was scheming evil thoughts in her heart. The words she said were very understanding. This young master is really a coincidence. We meet again. Why don't we look for the ghost face orchid together? I have many people here, and I can help you look after your daughter. Di Biming nodded slightly. Princess Ziyu immediately let her subordinates carry little Jiu. But Di Biming said coldly, no need. He Xinjiu was quite satisfied with Di Biming's actions. If he dared to let others carry her, she would cry for him to see. May I know how to address you, young master? Princess Ziyu asked shyly. My father's surname is Bei, and his name is Beiyu. He's a big fish. It's the kind of fish that can be eaten. But if you don't eat it well, you'll get fishy all over. Little Jiu said softly. Di Biming's face stiffened, and he tightened his grip on He Xinjiu. Princess Ziyu felt that the little girl's words had a hidden meaning, and there was a hint of mockery in them. She could not help but feel angry in her heart, and there was a trace of viciousness in her eyes as she looked at little Nine. It would be better to find an opportunity to kill this little bastard in this Yulon Valley, so as to avoid ruining her good deed. Even so, she still said with a slightly red face, Young Master Bei, ghost face orchids usually live in dark and damp places. We've found ghost face orchids not far ahead. Let's go and take a look. Di Biming hummed and followed Princess Ziyu and the others. After walking for about 2 hours they came to a shrub. This place was close to a stream, and there were many withered branches and leaves under the low shrub. This was the most suitable place for ghost face orchids to grow. He Xinjiu was puzzled. Didn't Princess Ziyu say that she had a treasure to look for ghost face orchids? What kind of treasure was it? Just as He Xinjiu was puzzled, Princess Ziyu took out a bead that was emitting a faint blue light. Princess Ziyu explained, Young Master Bei, the ghost face orchid is the best at disguising itself. It's very difficult to be discovered by others. However, the blue light emitted by the orchid bead in my hand can easily discover the ghost face orchid. Di Biming nodded indifferently and did not say anything. Princess Ziyu was slightly disappointed. This young Master Bei was too cold. It was probably because of the little bastard in his arms. He really deserved to die. Princess Ziyu held the orchid pearl in her hand and searched through the bushes. Unfortunately, she did not find anything. Someone sighed, this ghost face orchid is getting harder and harder to find. Could it be that I have to return empty-handed again? Yeah, it's been many years since we've found any traces of ghost face orchids. What the hell? Where did those ghost face orchids go? Princess Ziyu heard her subordinates' complaints and coughed unhappily. Everyone immediately fell silent. Let's go to the ghost cave and try our luck. Maybe we'll find something there. Princess Ziyu said as she glanced at little Nine in Di Biming's arms. Immediately, an elderly woman advised, Princess, the ghost cave is extremely dangerous. Although the ghost face orchid is precious, it's not worth the risk. Let's just forget about it. Princess Ziyu said unhappily, Granny Lu, I've made up my mind. You don't have to say it. Chapter 3452. The ghost is here. Granny Lu saw that Princess Ziyu's attitude was firm, so she did not dare to say anything more. Therefore, the group left the bushes and headed towards the ghost cave. He Xinjiu naturally did not ignore the malicious gaze Princess Ziyu gave her. She sneered in her heart. Was she trying to stir up trouble in the ghost cave and kill her? Tsk, she was really courting death. Not to mention that she had a gigolo by her side. Even if she did not have a gigolo, she still had many ways to kill this little bitch. Thinking of the gigolo, He Xinjiu felt a little comforted. No matter what, this heartless person had been hugging her for 4 hours and had no intention of letting go of her, even though it was a little cold. But at least he knew how to protect her. This guy rolled his eyes. Daddy, it's so tiring to carry me all the time. Let them carry me with the pole. Princess Ziyu could not wait to have such an opportunity. She immediately ordered her subordinates to take out the pole. Di Biming glanced at He Xinjiu and saw that her eyes were full of cunning. After a moment of silence, he put her on the pole. He Xinjiu sat on the pole and took out some melon seeds. She was munching on them while humming a tune, looking very relaxed. Seeing that Di Biming had finally regained his freedom, Princess Ziyu immediately went over and wanted to talk to him. She did not expect Di Biming to flash to the side of the pole. Obviously, he was not going to say anything to her. Princess Ziyu was so angry that she gritted her teeth. In her heart, she became even more determined to kill little Nine. After walking for about 4 hours, they finally arrived at the entrance of the ghost cave. Hei Xinzhou looked at the footprints on the ground and her heart moved. It seemed that the people from the Li Hate Palace had already entered the ghost cave. What secrets did this ghost cave contain? The ghost cave was very narrow and could only allow one person to pass through. Princess Ziyu gave the 2 people who were carrying the pole a look. The meaning was obvious. She wanted to find a chance to kill little Nine. Unexpectedly, Di Biming stretched out his arm and picked little Nine up from the pole. He was the first to enter the ghost cave. Princess Ziyu gritted her teeth. She hated him in her heart. Anyway, there were plenty of opportunities inside. Let's see if you can always protect her. Little Nine hugged Di Biming's neck and looked at Princess Ziyu, who was following closely behind. She secretly mouthed, "Fuck crazy." Princess Ziyu was so angry that she almost vomited blood. This bastard. Little Nine saw that Princess Ziyu was so angry that her face turned red. A sweet smile appeared on her face and she kissed Di Biming's face. Di Biming's body stiffened. He paused for a moment and then continued to walk forward. Hei Xinzhou stopped when she saw the situation. She did not continue to flirt with a certain someone but instead looked at this so-called ghost cave. The ground was very slippery and there were some moss growing on it. There was nothing special about it. Of course, it might be because this was just the entrance and the deeper one went, the more dangerous it would be. Princess Ziyu finally calmed down and said gently, "Young Master Bei, the reason why this ghost cave is called a ghost cave is because there are many rarely seen ferocious demonic beasts and it is said that it is haunted. Of course, it is very likely that this is just a rumor. People are just trying to scare themselves." Before Princess Ziyu finished her sentence, she heard little Nine scream in fear, "Ghosts! There are ghosts! The ghosts are coming!" Princess Ziyu and the others were scared out of their wits and wanted to retreat. However, the tunnel was too narrow. As they pushed and shoved, a few of them squeezed into the tunnel and made a mess. At this moment, everyone heard little Nine say with a smile, "Ha ha ha. I'm joking with you. Isn't it fun?" Chapter 3453. My father is a slave to his wife Princess Ziyu, and the others almost died from anger. This little girl was really too wicked. She was already scared to death in this ghost cave, but she actually intentionally scared them. She was really crafty. Yun Chujia's smile was extremely bright. She stole a glance at Di Biming's deep eyes and saw that there was actually a hint of a smile in them. She was stunned in her heart, but when she looked again, she still looked like an ancient well without any ripples. This fellow curled his lips in his heart. He wanted to laugh but did not. He was not afraid of stifling his internal injuries. Thinking about internal injuries, Hei Xinzhou thought wickedly. Could it be that this gigolo had sealed his 7 emotions and 6 desires because he could not eat her for a long time? Otherwise, it would indeed be easy to stifle his internal injuries. However, thinking about it, it was really tragic. Fortunately, the lifespan of people in the towering sky continent was more than 1,000 years. She was still considered a young and beautiful girl. Otherwise, it would really be fatal if she did not come to Kuei from the beginning to the end. After walking for more than an hour, the passage gradually became spacious. In the end, if it were not for the stone walls covering the several hundred feet high place, they would really think that this was a valley and not a cave. However, there was no light source in the cave. Fortunately, everyone had night luminescent pearls on them, so they didn't delay their walk. They found some corpses of demonic beasts one after another. The blood on them had not dried yet. Apparently, someone had just left here. Princess Ziyu couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Could it be that someone has come in? Who exactly is it?" Hei Xinzhou could not help but twitch her lips. Only now did she realize that someone had entered. They were truly stupid. It was rare for Di Biming to open his mouth and say, "We met people from the Li Hate Palace at the entrance of the valley. These demonic beasts must have been killed by them." People from the Li Hate Palace? Princess Ziyu suddenly raised her voice. What are they doing here? Could it be that they are also here to find the ghost face orchid? If we find the ghost face orchids, we will naturally have to offer them to the Li Hate Palace. There is no need for them to personally come and pick the ghost face orchids, right? No one replied to Princess Ziyu's words because they were also puzzled. Nanny Lu once again advised Princess, since the people from the Li Hate Palace are in front, let's go back. Princess Ziyu glanced at the expressionless Di Biming. Young Master Bei, what do you think? Di Biming did not say anything and continued walking forward. Little Nine said softly, you can go back now. My father loves his wife very much and will not marry anyone else, so it's useless for you to follow him. Why bother? Let me tell you, my father is a wife slave. He washes his wife's feet, massages her shoulders and massages her legs every day. At night he even sings lullabies to her. He doesn't even want her to walk on her own and carries her around every day. The jealousy in Princess Ziyu's heart grew like poisonous weeds. She had no intention of leaving in the first place. After hearing He Xinjia's words, it was even more impossible for her to leave. She was definitely going to take this man. He Xinjiu saw that Princess Ziyu still had no intention of leaving. She thought to herself, this can't be blamed on me. I've already let her go. If she still doesn't leave, then she's courting death. He Xinjia's attention was on Princess Ziyu, but she didn't notice that when she said those words, a certain honored guest's expression was as cold as ice. He reckoned that if the situation wasn't wrong, he would definitely teach little Joe a lesson. The deeper they went, the more corpses the demonic beasts had. He Xinjiu couldn't help but grumble. What a waste. These can all be sold for money. A certain lord's body stiffened. In his memory, this little rascal seemed to have a lot of money. Why was he so obsessed with money? Chapter 3454. When Princess Ziyu heard Yun Chujia's words, her heart was filled with joy. This little bastard's words, did it mean that young Master Bai's family background was not very good? As long as she became her prince consort, she would have countless spirit stones. Who knows, she might even be able to move young Master Bai's heart. When He Xinjiu saw Princess Ziyu's face filled with infatuation, she could not help but feel disdain in her heart. Have you never seen a man before? To actually covet her man, how shameless. Fuck, if it wasn't for Guai Chao causing trouble, the gigolo would have long been hers. Monkeys could give birth to several of them. That damned Go Weiba. Guai Chao and his dantian. There were always a few days every month when he had to be scolded. He was already used to it. As he walked, a faint blue light came from the front. It looked similar to the light emitted by Princess Ziyu's pearl. Everyone quickened their steps, and soon sounds of fighting could be heard from the front. With the faint blue light, they could see that the people of the Li Hate Palace were fighting with several giant snakes. Heavens! It's a 59th level dark poison giant snake. Princess, let's retreat quickly. Nanny Lu said in terror. The 59th level dark poison giant snake was equivalent to those at the 3rd to 4th level of psychic power. Although there were also people at the 4th level of psychic power among the people Princess Ziyu brought, there were dozens of dark poison giant snakes. They would definitely not benefit from it. Just as Princess Ziyu was hesitating, she heard someone in front of her shout, since they are from the Jun Tiantian Kingdom, why aren't you coming over to help? Do you want to leave them to die? Princess Ziyu did not dare to leave even if she wanted to. Even if she was a princess of the Jun Tiantian Kingdom, she did not dare to offend the Lihan Palace. Princess Ziyu could only leave a few people to protect herself, and let the others come forward to help. Di Biming stood to the side with little Nine in his arms and could only watch indifferently. A cold glint flashed across Di Biming's eyes as he coldly asked Princess Ziyu, there should be ghost face orchids in the imperial palace of your Jun Tiantian Kingdom, right? Princess Ziyu did not expect Di Biming to take the initiative to speak to her. She was simply too excited and did not have the time to lie. She honestly said, young Master Bei, we have not found ghost face orchids for several years. The ones we picked previously were all given to the Li Hate Palace, so there are no ghost face orchids in our imperial palace. Di Biming frowned slightly. It would have been fine if there were ghost face orchids in the Juntian Kingdom's imperial palace. He could just force the Juntian Kingdom's emperor to take them out, but the Lihen Palace was a little difficult to deal with. Although his spiritual power was not low now, he still did not have much confidence in forcefully breaking into the Lihen Palace. It seemed that he could only try his luck in the ghost cave. If he really could not do it, he could only go to the Lihen Palace. Just as Di Biming was deep in thought, a giant poisonous snake suddenly crawled towards them quickly. It spat out its scarlet tongue, looking rather terrifying. Princess Ziyu cried out in shock, "You guys quick, kill it!" Princess Ziyu's subordinates immediately went forward to stop the giant poisonous snake, and the two sides engaged in a battle. Di Biming was still holding on to Little Nine as he watched coldly from the side. He had no intention of extending his hand at all. Princess Ziyu's subordinates spent quite a while before they finally killed the giant poisonous snake. However, they looked at Di Biming with disdain. Although this man's spiritual power seemed to be quite high, he was probably just putting on a show. Otherwise, why didn't he extend his hand? He was probably afraid that he would be exposed if he extended his hand, right? Princess Ziyu was also a little displeased. Firstly, he actually only cared about that bastard of his and did not save him. Secondly, he was probably just a flowery pillow and did not have any real abilities. Chapter 3455. What a cute little thing. Princess Ziyu's thoughts suddenly changed a little. The sky-high continent respected the strong. No matter how handsome this man was, he would still be looked down upon by others if he did not have any abilities. Her gaze towards Di Biming immediately became less heated. She had really lost her mind just now. She had actually entered the ghost cave for him. She really deserved to die. After another 2 hours, those giant poisonous snakes were finally killed. The air was filled with the smell of blood. A small leader of the Lihen Palace walked over. He first nodded slightly to Princess Ziyu, then his gaze landed on the spotless Di Biming. He sneered a few times, then said, "This young master is really calm. Our lives were hanging by a thread just now, yet you just watched coldly from the side. Since that's the case, help us scout ahead." Di Biming slightly curled the corner of his mouth. A trace of sternness flashed in his eyes, but he didn't say anything. He lifted his leg and walked forward. It was obvious that he had agreed to scout ahead for everyone. If it was before, Princess Ziyu would definitely put in a few good words for them. But now her thoughts had changed, so she didn't say anything. Instead, she wanted to leave. But that small leader said, "Since we're here, let's go together." Princess Ziyu didn't dare to say anything else and could only follow him. Hei Shinjo held Di Biming's neck and her eyes flashed as she looked at Di Biming's eyes. She was a little nervous at first, but when she saw the calmness in Di Biming's eyes, she immediately knew that the gigolo must have used these people to find the ghost face orchid, which was why he didn't kill them. Otherwise, none of these little dregs would be able to live. After walking for a short while, they found a huge nest. There were some demon beast eggs inside, and some of them had already begun to hatch. It was clearly the nest of those giant dark poison snakes from before. No wonder those giant dark poison snakes had come out in full force. They were probably afraid that the people of the Lihen Palace would harm their young. The people of the Lihen Palace put away those demonic beast eggs and urged Di Biming to continue walking forward. After walking for some distance, they heard the roars of beasts. 2 giant blue demonic tigers blocked their way. Hei Shinjo widened her eyes and said in surprise, "What a beautiful kitten. This is the first time I've seen a blue kitten. Daddy, I want to play with them for a while." The 2 blue tigers. Princess Ziyu snorted coldly. "These are level 61 blue tigers, not kittens. You want to play with them? Are you courting death?" Yun Chujo ignored her and looked at the 2 blue tigers instead. She said softly, "Kittens, run." "These people are very fierce. They are not as kind as my father and I are. They will kill you." A trace of confusion flashed across the 2 blue tigers' huge eyes. This little human girl actually advised them to run? She actually did not want them to be killed? Since that was the case, then she would eat the others first and then her. When the two blue tigers thought of this, they actually bypassed Di Biming and Yun Chuzhou, who were at the front, and pounced on the people behind them. Those people felt as if their hearts were going to explode. Were these two giant blue tigers blind? Why didn't they attack the father and daughter? Why did they have to attack them? He Xinzhou took out a spirit fruit and said vaguely while chewing, "Daddy, those two kittens look so cute when they fight. I've never seen such a cute little thing." Everyone. Cute? Little thing? Damn it, not only were the two giant blue tigers blind, but this little girl was even more blind. Chapter 3456. Blue Bats. Although the two indigo tiger spirit ranks were not low, the Li Hate Palace and the Jun Tiantian Kingdom combined had several dozen people. They were soon at a disadvantage. Little Nine chewed on a fruit as she shouted, "Little things, quickly run, or you'll really lose your lives." The two indigo tigers looked at each other and then ran away. The people of the Li Hate Palace, Princess Ziyu, and the others did not want to waste time with the demonic beasts, so no one chased after them. The leader of the Li Hate Palace urged Di Biming to continue exploring. Di Biming carried Little Nine and continued to walk forward leisurely. The deeper they went, the brighter the blue light became. He Xinzhou was very curious. What on earth could emit such a strong light? There must be a good treasure. Just as He Xinzhou was thinking about it, countless black shadows suddenly flew towards them. They were so fast that no one could see what was flying towards them. Di Biming did not attack those things. Instead, he waved his sleeves to form a spiritual energy shield, protecting him and little Jiu within it. He Xinzhou blinked her eyes and looked at those things that were continuously attacking the spiritual energy shield. Only when she got closer did she see clearly that they were countless blue vampire bats. Their bodies were emitting a faint blue light. He Xinzhou was shocked. Could it be that the blue light that they saw was emitted by these bats? Heavens, the light was so bright. How many of these bats were there? Princess Ziyu and the others had already fought with those bats. From time to time, they could hear the screams of cultivators and bats. However, it seemed that these bats alone were not a match for Princess Ziyu and the others. As expected, after a fierce battle, Princess Ziyu and the others finally killed all the blue bats. However, they had also lost a few people. When they saw Di Biming and Xiaoxiao's spotless appearance, they were both puzzled and indignant. That man had only formed a spiritual energy barrier, but the blue bats actually did not break through. But that was also true. They had attracted the bats' attention, so he naturally took advantage of them. At this time, Princess Ziyu really wanted to retreat, but before she could say anything, she was frightened by the little leader's cold gaze and didn't dare to say anything more. In her heart, she was angry at Di Biming. If it wasn't for him, why would she enter this ghost cave on impulse? He and that little bastard deserved to die. This time, Di Biming did not use his little leader to urge him. He carried Little Nine and continued to walk forward. Not long after, another group of blue bats flew over. Just like before, Di Biming still maintained his spiritual energy barrier and calmly watched the show from the side. After Princess Ziyu and the others fought, a few more people died and were injured. Princess Ziyu did not care whether she was afraid or not. She said with a sharp voice, "No. Those blue lights in front must be emitted by these blue bats. If we continue to move forward, we will die. I want to go back." Those people from the June Heaven Kingdom did not want to move forward for a long time. When they heard Princess Ziyu's words, they wanted to protect Princess Ziyu and retreat. The leader of the Lihan Palace sneered, "Princess Ziyu, if you leave now, I guarantee that you will be expelled by the imperial family tomorrow, and your followers will also be wiped out." Princess Ziyu and her followers felt a chill in their hearts. They absolutely did not doubt the words of the leader. Although the June Heaven Kingdom was a first-class country, if the Li Hate Palace blamed them, the emperor would definitely sacrifice them. Even if Princess Ziyu was a princess, they would also be abandoned. Chapter 3457. Blue Glaze. Princess Ziyu was being threatened. She could only say hesitantly, "My lord, it's not that I don't want to serve the Li Hate Palace. It's just that there are so many blue bats. I'm afraid we won't be a match for them. Moreover, will there be ghost face orchids here? The leader sneered. Who says we're looking for ghost face orchids? There's no need for you to say anything. Just follow us. If we succeed, there won't be any lack of benefits for you. At this moment, Princess Ziyu naturally did not dare to say anything else. She hesitantly agreed. Biming slightly frowned. If there were no ghost face orchids here, wouldn't he have wasted all his efforts? However, if they could obtain what the Li Hate Palace was looking for, it wouldn't be too bad. Perhaps they could use it to exchange for ghost face orchids. After a few more waves of blue bat attacks, nearly half of the people were killed or injured. Only then did they arrive at the end of the ghost cave. Everyone was stunned by the magnificent scene before them. They did not know what kind of or the stone wall was made of, but it was emitting a faint blue light. Countless ghost face orchids were attached to the stone wall. Under the blue light, they looked like they were made of glass. The leader of the Li Hate Palace was ecstatic. We found it. We finally found it. This is the blue marble. Quick! Cut these blue marble carefully and take them away. Blue marble? Hei Shinjo blinked her eyes. She had never heard of it and did not know what it was used for. Could it be that it was just because of its good looks? Biming's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He knew about the blue marble, but he did not expect that there was such a thing in the towering sky continent. The blue marble had a special effect, which was to dispel the inner demons and prevent cultivation deviation. The blue charm glaze could be said to be a treasure to those with profound cultivation. The more profound the cultivation, the harder it was to dispel the inner demons. With this blue charm glaze, one could at least prevent one from going berserk. However, Biming had no interest in this blue charm glaze. He was only interested in the ghost face orchid that was attached to the blue charm glaze. He said indifferently, I need some ghost face orchids. I'll pick a few and you guys can cut the blue charm glaze. The reason why Biming said this was because he didn't want to cause trouble for no reason. After he obtained the ghost face orchids, he could send this little rascal back to the East Phoenix Kingdom. This way he could go back to his own matters. Who would have thought that the little leader of the Li Hate Palace would sneer again and again? You want the ghost face orchids? With just you. To tell you the truth, the reason why I let you live until now is because I want you to scout the way for us. Go kill him. The little leader waved his hand, and the people of the Li Hate Palace and Princess Ziyu immediately revealed fierce killing intent. Princess Ziyu snorted coldly and said nothing. A good-for-nothing who didn't know what was good for him could just die. Biming's expression didn't change in the slightest. He just put little Nine on the ground and said indifferently, Go and pick the ghost face orchid. Hei Shinjo was very confident in her man's perversion. She immediately ran to the stone wall to pick the ghost face orchid with her short legs. As if she did not know that the people behind her were going to kill them. Seeing Biming ignoring them, the leader said viciously, Don't just stand there. Kill him right now. Immediately, 3 people rushed towards Biming. Although they knew that Biming's spiritual power was higher than theirs, they felt that it was easy for 3 people to kill him. Almost no one saw how Biming moved. The 3 people had already fallen to the ground and died. Chapter 3458. Shadow transmission stoned the little leader, and the others were stunned. This man was actually so strong? However, at this point they could only fight to the death. The little leader shouted in exasperation, What are you all standing there for? Attack! Attack together! Kill him! Everyone charged towards Biming. Princess Ziyu's heart was very complicated. She was filled with regret and hatred. She looked at little Nine who was picking the ghost face orchid. As long as she caught this bastard, that man could only surrender obediently. Hence, she took advantage of the moment when Biming was surrounded by everyone, and leaped towards little Nine. Before her foot landed on the ground, an ice arrow pierced her forehead. She tried her best to look to the other side and saw that most of the people had already died. Even those who were still struggling on the brink of death would not be able to escape the fate of death. At this moment, Princess Ziyu truly regretted it. If she had known this would happen, she would have left when that little bastard told her to leave. One wrong step, one wrong step. The head of the Lee Hate Palace was buzzing. It was over. None of them would survive today. If she had known this would happen, she would have let this man pick a few ghost face orchids. While the head was in a daze, the rest of the people were all killed by debeaming. He gritted his teeth. Even if he did not survive today, this man and that little bastard would not be able to live. He took out a dark black stone from his storage ring and held it in his hand. When debeaming saw the stone, his heart trembled. Almost instantly, a mask appeared on his face. Then, an ice arrow shot into the little leader's forehead. Debeaming struck the stone with his palm, and instantly the stone turned into powder. When little Nine heard the sound, she turned her head and saw the black powder flying in all directions. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "Male God, what is that thing?" Debeaming took off the mask on his face and said with a cold voice, "Shadow Stone." Before he died, he probably already teleported the situation here back to the Lee Hate Palace. However, it's a good thing that there's only your back. Moreover, my true body also put on the mask at the first moment, so I shouldn't have teleported my true Bodis appearance over. However, it's not good to stay here for long. The people of the Lee Hate Palace will soon send people to the valley entrance to intercept us. We must leave as soon as possible. Yun Chujo nodded. She released 5 puppets to help her pick the ghost face orchids. These things were hard to come by, so she had to get more of them. Finally, she managed to pick most of the ghost face orchids on the stone wall. This fellow took out a large kitchen knife and began to cut the blue-colored glass. Since this thing was something the hateful palace wanted, it must be something good. They couldn't let it go to their advantage. When debeaming saw Yun Chujo chop at the blue-colored glass, he didn't say anything. Although time was of the essence, it wasn't too late. Moreover, this blue-colored glass was very rare, so it was fine to get some. When he saw that little Nine was having a hard time, he simply took the large kitchen knife from her hand and helped her chop. Very quickly, the two chopped off a large piece of blue-colored glass and left the ghost cave. After carrying Yun Chujo out of the Orchid Valley, debeaming rode on his flying spirit tool and sped towards the East Phoenix country. Hei Shinjo could not wait to refine an antidote for the rejuvenation pill. Just as she was about to eat it, she heard a clank coming from the cabin next door. Hei Shinjo was stunned. What was the pretty boy doing? She ran over with her short legs and saw debeaming lying on the ground with a pale face. Although there was no ice on his body, his lips were still frozen until they turned blue. Chapter 3459 was actually Mei Longglaze. Yun Chujo helped debeaming sit up and asked, "Prince Charming, what's wrong? Didn't you seal your 7 emotions and 6 desires? Why is the cold poison still acting up?" Debeaming's expression was still calm as he said coldly, "I don't know why, but the cold poison in my body suddenly acted up, and it's even more powerful than before." Yun Chujo frowned. It was even more intense than before? Could it be that something had triggered the thing in his body? Could it be the blue marble or the ghost face orchid? In order to verify her thoughts, Yun Chujo took out a ghost face orchid and waved it in front of debeaming. Debeaming did not have any special reaction, but when Yun Chujo took out a piece of blue marble, debeaming's face suddenly turned even paler. Clearly, the blue marble was the culprit. Yun Chujo quickly put away the blue marble. This thing could actually trigger the cold poison in the gigolo's body? When she thought about how the people of the Lee Hate Palace wanted to take the blue marble, could it be to deal with the gigolo? She shook her head. How was this possible? Even the gigolo himself didn't know that the blue marble would affect him. So how could the people of the Lee Hate Palace know? It must be a coincidence. However, fortunately, she had completely cut down the blue marble in the ghost cave. Even if the people of the Lee Hate Palace really wanted to harm the gigolo, there was no way they could obtain it. Debeaming's eyes surged with emotions as he tightly clenched his fists. After a moment, his eyes regained their calmness. He said indifferently, "Although the blue charm glaze has triggered the cold poison, it has already been suppressed by this main body. There won't be any major problems. You can rest assured." Yun Chujo looked at debeaming. whose face was as pale as a sheet of paper. She curled her lips slightly and said, "Don't you feel guilty saying this? Let me ask you, how much spiritual power do you have left? Don't tell me you don't have any left?" Di Biming was silent for a long while, and then said with a slightly bitter tone, "Less than 1%. Yun Chujio." This was not a big deal? Did he really think she was a 3-year-old child? Just as He Xinzhou was silently complaining, she was shocked. She ran to the observation window and saw several flying spiritual artifacts flying over, obviously trying to force them to land. Yun Chujia's heart sank. The people from the Palace of Hatred had arrived so quickly? It shouldn't be. At this moment, a shout came from one of the flying spirit tools, "Land immediately and accept the official's identity verification. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." Official's identity verification? It must be someone from the Jun Tian Kingdom. It must be an order from the Palace of Hatred. After all, they were in the Jun Tian Kingdom, so the people from the Jun Tian Kingdom could rush over immediately. However, what should they do next? It was definitely impossible to escape. If the pretty boy's cold poison had not taken effect, he could have easily dealt with these people. If they resisted now, they would be courting death. However, if they landed, they would not have any identity documents. Yun Chujio looked at her small arms and legs. Not to mention her current condition, even if she took the antidote, she would not be able to defeat so many people. What should she do? Yun Chujio stared at her little paws and her eyes lit up. She immediately ran to Di Biming and stuffed a pill into his mouth. Di Biming was caught off guard and swallowed the pill. He asked in confusion, "What kind of pill did you give me?" Yun Chujio didn't say anything. She just gloated at Di Biming. Chapter 3460 Debao and Xiaobao. Yun Chujio ignored him and took out a transfiguration pill and swallowed it. This guy thought about it and felt that it was still not safe. He took out the antidote for the rejuvenation pill and gently bit it. This guy thought about it and gave Di Biming another transfiguration pill. A moment later, there was only a little boy and a little girl left in the cabin. Both of them looked like they were only 5 or 6 years old. The little boy was stunned. Di Biming stared at his small arms and legs. The cold air emitted from his body was even colder than the cold poison. He looked at Yun Chujio coldly. "What do you want to do?" Yun Chujio said softly, "If I don't do this, how can I hide from them to check my identity? Later, you will say that we have encountered bad people. In order to protect us, our parents lured away those bad people. If we ask you about your identity, you will cry. Do you hear me?" Although Di Biming was so angry that smoke was almost coming out of his head, he knew that this was also a solution. Anyway, he had the antidote in his hands. Once he was out of danger, he would just take the antidote. Perhaps because his body had become smaller, Di Biming felt that the influence of the cold poison had weakened a lot. Although his spiritual power was still very weak, at least he would have no problem walking. Yun Chujio took her short legs and controlled the flying spirit tool to land on the ground. Then, she was led down the flying spirit tool by Di Biming. The people from the Juntian Kingdom were stunned when they saw the 2 little kids. "Where are your parents?" Di Biming said with an indifferent expression. "We met some bad people on the way. In order to protect us, our parents lured those bad people away." Yun Chujio saw Di Biming's calm expression and cursed in her heart. He couldn't even act. He was so stupid. She pursed her lips and hugged Di Biming's waist. She pinched him hard on the waist and started sobbing. "Brother, I'm scared. I want father, I want mother." Sob. Di Biming was pinched so hard that his mouth twitched. He finally realized that his expression was too calm. In order to cover it up, he had to lower his head and remain silent. The people from the Juntian Kingdom sized up the 2 little ones. Then they thought of the orders from above. A cold man and a 3 or 4-year-old little girl. These 2 were obviously not of the same age. Moreover, the little boy's face was pale. It seemed that he was seriously ill. It was impossible for these 2 little kids to be wanted criminals. The leader frowned and said, "What are your names? What are your parents' names? Do you still remember where your home is?" Little Nine gave D. Biming a look. D. Biming squatted on the ground with a pale face. His forehead was full of bean-sized beads of sweat. Little Nine cried again, Big brother is sick. Big brother is called to Bao, and I am little Bao. We are both 5 years old, Sabasobi. One of the subordinates approached the leader and said, Boss, I think these two are too young. They look like twins. Even if you ask them, you won't be able to get anything out of them. Didn't they say that their parents lured the enemy away? Maybe they will come and look for them in a while. Besides, the capital is not far ahead. After they enter the city, there will naturally be people who will pity them and help them. We have important matters to attend to. So it's better to ignore these two little kids. Otherwise, if the higher-ups blame us, our lives will be in danger. The leader nodded and then said to the two little ones, in order to catch the important criminals, the entire Juntian kingdom is prohibited from flying. A few miles south is Yangli City. Go into the city and ask for help. D. Biming struggled to stand up and nodded his head. Little Nine said in a childish voice, Thank you. You're really good people. The officers and soldiers were amused by Little Nine's words. They gave a few more instructions and then left. Chapter 3461. Two small hands holding hands. Yun Chuzhou looked at the flying spirit tool in the distance and looked at little Ming, who had an indifferent expression. Let's enter the city first. The most dangerous place is the safest place. We will leave when your spiritual power has recovered. D. Biming nodded. Now, even if he was unwilling, he did not have the ability to resist. They did not have any identity documents, so they could only hide as children. Moreover, it was safer inside Jinli City than outside. At least there weren't any demonic beasts attacking. Yun Chuzhou reached out her small claws and held D. Biming's hand. D. Biming didn't say anything, but his small face was tight. Yun Chuzhou stared at the side of little Ming's face. Although he had taken a disguise pill, there was a type of person who was born to make people ignore his appearance. A certain someone was obviously this type. Regardless of his figure, appearance, or even his age, it did not affect him from becoming the focus of the crowd. Even if little Ming had become a little bun, his tightly pursed lips and cold eyes still gave off an aura that made people stay away from him. He had obviously restrained this aura just now. Otherwise, the officers and soldiers would not have believed them so easily. Yun Chujia's heart itched when she saw this. She leaned over and kissed little Ming's face. Little Ming's handsome face immediately turned red. He staggered and pursed his lips even tighter. He said coldly, Men and women shouldn't be intimate. You should be more careful. Little Nine hugged her stomach and laughed so hard that she couldn't straighten her back. If D. Biming had said this before, it would have been a little intimidating. However, when this little bun said it in a soft child's voice, it was almost like he was acting coquettishly. Little Ming obviously realized this as well. He looked coldly at Little Nine, who was laughing so hard that she was leaning back and forth. Then he walked quickly with his short legs. Obviously, he wasn't going to bother with Little Nine anymore. Hei Shinjo looked at the desolate little figure in front of her and laughed even harder. Although the two of them were in danger now, it was really worth it to see the pretty boy become like this. The hands under the sleeves of a certain figure clenched tightly, and his eyes were dark. Damn it! He was too weak now. The little blue glaze had made him lose the ability to protect himself, let alone protect that little rascal. He had to take back what belonged to him as soon as possible. Hei Shinjo hopped to the side of a certain figure. She held his little hand and said with a smile, Little brother, don't be angry. No matter what, you have become smaller. At least the cold poison has weakened. When the cold poison is fine, we can take the antidote. A certain person's face was still expressionless, but he did not shake off Hei Xinjia's claws. He held her hand and walked out of Yangli City. The city of Yangli City was even more magnificent than Starry Night City. Its size was comparable to 5 or 6 Starry Night cities. There were many soldiers guarding the city gate. They strictly checked everyone's identity documents. Occasionally, they would meet a handsome man or a 3 or 4-year-old girl, and they would be detained and interrogated strictly. Yoon Chujo silently gave herself a 360-degree like without any blind spots, and then looked at a certain person next to her proudly. A certain person was still expressionless, as if he did not see her gloating. Hei Shinjo silently pinched him and said in a low voice, "Act well. Is there a little bun with a cold face like you?" Although Di Biming was reluctant, he had no choice but to restrain his aura. Outsiders might feel that this little boy was too cold, but they would not be too surprised. Chapter 3462 had a hint of cuteness. Yoon Chujo had adjusted her spiritual power to the 8th layer of the spiritual venerable realm when she landed on the flying spirit tool. As for a certain one, he had also adjusted his spiritual power to the 8th layer of the spiritual venerable realm with a secret technique. The two of them held hands and arrived at the city gate. The soldiers guarding the city gate glanced at the two little ones. "Kids, where are your parents?" Yoon Chujo pouted. "We got separated from them. An uncle told us to go into the city and wait for them." A few soldiers looked at the two little ones suspiciously. They looked to be about 5 or 6 years old, and their spiritual power was at the 8th layer of the spiritual venerable realm. They seemed to be quite talented, and their clothes were very exquisite. They should be children of big families. They didn't want to offend people, so their tone was quite good. They asked, "What uncle?" "Just like you guys, he's also a soldier. However, his clothes are purple, and there's a mole on his chin. It seems like people call him Leader Zhang," Little Nine said softly. The soldiers looked at each other when they heard that. Leader Zhang was the commander of the royal guards. Since Leader Zhang had specifically instructed these two little dolls to enter the city, perhaps these two little dolls really had some background. Therefore, the soldiers did not continue interrogating. They waved their hands and let the two children enter Yongli's city. A certain lord's eyes flashed. When this little scoundrel lied, he did not even blink his eyes. However, it made people feel that he was a little cute. He must have lost his brain because his body had become smaller. That must be it. Hei Shinjo did not know what the certain someone was thinking. When she saw the bustling scene in the city, she immediately threw her worries to the back of her mind. Especially when she saw the snacks on both sides of the road, she could not walk anymore. The certain someone looked speechlessly at Little Nine, who had bought a huge pile of snacks. Hei Shinjo held a candy man and ate as she walked. She smiled and asked a certain someone beside her, "Brother, try this. It's so sweet." A certain person looked at her indifferently and did not say anything. Hei Shinjo curled her lips. She did not know how to enjoy life at all. If she did not want to eat, then so be it. Hei Shinjo still wanted to go to the restaurant to have a big meal, but she was stopped by a certain person. "Don't cause trouble. Let's find a bigger inn to stay in. Don't go out too much in the future." Although Hei Shinjo was unwilling, she knew that Di Biming was right. It was better to keep a low profile. The two little ones finally chose a big inn and asked for a superior room to stay in. Although the owner of the inn was surprised to see only the two little kids, he thought that their parents would come soon, so he didn't say anything. This was also the reason why Di Biming and Yoon Chujo chose the large inn. The owner and staff of the large inn were well informed and wouldn't be surprised. If they chose a small inn, they might get into trouble. The two little ones naturally did not want 2 rooms. At night, after Little Nine washed up, she climbed onto the bed. Then, she saw a certain someone take out a futon and sit cross-legged on the ground to meditate. Little Nine pouted. "If you want your cold poison to be bad, you can meditate on the ground tonight. I'm not a tiger, do you have to be so afraid of me? You don't even dare to sleep on the same bed as me? Besides, with your small body, I have no interest in doing anything." A certain venerable's body stiffened. He stood up and looked at Xiao Xiaojiu coldly. "If you continue to speak without thinking, venerable, humph. What about you? Let me tell you, pretty boy, your fate is in my hands now. If you make me unhappy, I'll make you a little bun for the rest of your life." Hei Shinjo said proudly. "You're tuning into the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.